What are we called? The Foam News Collect? Okay, that's right.
Who are we again?
Wow.
Who are we again? Hello, and welcome to episode 21 of the Foam News Collective podcast. I'm KT. I'm here with my co-hosts, Vile Mods, Jolt King 627, Grimm's Nerfworks. Say what's up, y'all.
Hello.
What's going on, everybody?
As always, this is the partner podcast to episode 21 of the Foam News Collective show. Watching the show first probably helps you navigate the podcast, but especially on this one, it may not matter quite as much because we have a very special guest today, and we'll be talking with him about a lot of extra cool stuff. With us today is Chaylo Laurino, aka Captain Xavier. How are you doing? Coming back from weeks, essentially, of traveling and nerfing and just general chaos. Do you feel like you're recovering at all?
I am mostly recovered at this point. Getting back from Europe, the jet lag hit me like a train. Ragnar Oktoberfest wasn't too bad because I didn't take part in the tournament. And then Mall Madness, that is a brutal one to recover from because the event goes from 10:30 or 10 o'clock p.m. to 4 a.m.
Oh, that's right. It's all night.
It's all night, and it is rough having to go to work on Monday.
Okay, well, we'll come back to that. But what I want to do real quick, I'm sure anybody that's listening to our show has got to know who you are. But what I would like for anyone who somehow doesn't know who Captain Xavier is, welcome to the hobby, first of all, and second of all, would you introduce what's your Captain Xavier elevator pitch? How would you describe yourself to us if we had never gone nerfing?
So Captain Xavier is the leader of a company of professional mercenaries, and that is both in-game and in reality. At one point, we actually incorporated as a private security company that does still exist and operate out of Idaho. But in the Nerf world, I do the mercenary thing. We've been hired to go to events. We've been hired to protect people at events. We've been hired to go to LARPs. And if we don't get hired, then we just show up and run amok, as unhired mercenaries are wont to do.
Love it. Awesome. And we'll get deeper into that stuff later, but we got to do some of our usual stuff. Of course, we will be covering the singular story that didn't make the show. Normally there's multiples. I want to look at some of the bevy of 3D printed blasters. We're going to get regaled with tales of Captain Xavier's travels over the last month or so. We have a few questions from our Ko-Fi subscribers. This is a new thing that we've been doing. Thank you so much to our now 5 subscribers that we have, which is wild. And we're going to talk a little bit about the real world origins and the background of the Captain Xavier character. We're also going to talk about Dart Zone withdrawing their trademark application, and of course end with our silly question. And somewhere in there, we're also going to play our usual game, What's That Blaster, our blaster guessing game. But the first thing on the docket is the one story that didn't make the show, which is a CNC reshell of an AEB, the LN1, coming out of China. And this is the kind of thing that we generally don't cover, not because we don't think it's interesting or because nobody should have it or anything like that, but it's one of these blasters, and I'm sure people will have thoughts on this. It doesn't, if you know firearms, it doesn't look realistic, but if you don't, it does. I think it's very sci-fi. It has like a very sort of outlandish
it's like
look.
very
it's
alien
from Halo.
sci-fi almost. I can, but part of me can draw where someone might be able to gauge that firearm look because there are certain aspects of it that look like certain stuff, but it doesn't have an appearance of any particular existing firearm. It definitely feels very like mishmash sci-fi.
Keep in mind, a lot of sci-fi blasters are made from real firearms. All of the Star Wars blasters are made from surplus World War II firearms.
Right.
The Aliens blaster is made from the smart gun was an MG42. The pulse rifle was a Tommy gun. So,
it was like a Tommy gun and like a Remington, I think, strapped to the bottom or something?
Yeah.
Or not Remington, it's the Spaz 12. That's right, Spaz 12.
Yeah.
Well, and though, one of the things that I always try to remind people, especially when you're talking about public park wars and kids playing and the person that you're concerned about mistaking it for a firearm is not a firearms historian. It is the old lady who lives 200 yards away and doesn't know the difference.
Yeah.
It's the random passerby who's not
common
familiar enough to know the
denominator.
difference.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so something like this is may not be mistakable to someone who knows what they're looking for, but is definitely mistakable to someone like that. So
Yeah.
There's sort of twofold reasons why we didn't cover this on the show. One is it's one of these products that is not really available to the vast majority of our audience, which is starting to change. We're starting to notice, I think, more of an international audience on the show, and so we may have to reevaluate that aspect of our decision making, but we're not really there yet. But also, it can be hard just with the presentation of it on YouTube to cover some of the stuff like this. And when it's such a niche product, instead, we can just mention it here on the podcast and say, hey, like if this sounds like something that's interesting to you, join our Discord. You can find the link to it there. Because if it's interesting to you, you should definitely check it out. It does look very neat.
It looks very neat.
Yeah. But that's it. That's the only story that didn't make the show. The thing about the ink blasters in Italy at on base at the exchange almost didn't make the show, and then we were like, wow, there's really only two things in name brand news. So Vile recorded a segment for it.
Just slammed it out really quickly.
Yeah, last second. But what I do want to talk about from the show is I don't think I've seen this many new 3D printed blasters in one episode
I was just scrolling
time.
through the archive of episodes. I was trying to find something that I had seen the previous designer who's on this list had made before, but I couldn't quite find it a second ago, just off the top of my head. But looking
Which
through,
one?
I haven't seen a single episode where we've had this many 3D printed new blasters.
Yeah, there was a lot. A lot of cool ones too, though.
I know. There's so many that are that I'm excited about. So like, I actually I almost did like a blooper of this in the episode, but didn't wind up getting to it. I tried to print a finalizer. So the finalizer is one of these super simple 3D printable blasters, and it's made by Foam Blasted, one of my favorite creators, because he's just always doing cool, silly, fast things and like stuff that involves like old blasters that nobody thinks about. First project I ever did from him was replacement. What is the like
Battle Scout?
The Battle Scout. Thank you. The Battle Scout with its little clips. He made a 3D printable replacement, and he made me a version that could be brassed. And so it's like half brassed. I never finished it, but like just like really cool blasters no one's paying attention to. The original finalizer Jolt, I'm addressing you directly, was designed to fire Ultra.
Hello.
I know, right? And then he made Mega and cut down Mega and short dart and full dart versions.
No, none of that matters. None of that matters. Go back to the Ultra one.
So
they're stringer jolts, and they're print in place. So the trigger is a separate piece, but you print it all as one, and it becomes a separate part.
Okay.
How does that work?
Yeah.
That's neat.
I think the first sample blaster we covered was the nail clipper by Lidl, right?
I think so. Yeah. Because like all the Meeker stuff was like way before we did the show. That was like a year or two ago. So, and then the conductor's revolver. Does anyone here actually have one? I feel like, Captain, you have one of Domachevsky's blasters. Do you have something of his?
No.
I have his
belt fed magazine.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, a recent video was I know Captain was firing off the Hammervold recently.
Yeah, I borrowed a Hammervold from someone who got to fire that, and that thing was magnificent.
Yeah. The conductor's revolver, the fact that it just uses power systems from 7 off-the-shelf blasters that you just buy.
Yeah, I remember seeing like the original work in progress video for it where he was testing it out. I was like, that's actually really, really neat.
Yeah, it is the most, like, I went down kind of obviously since I covered the segment. It was it is such a cool build, because usually a lot of Domo's stuff is flywheeler based or some kind of like crazy big thing. and this is just a giant revolver with 7 plunger tubes from the X-Shot micros, all around the revolver. The way it's designed, because I went through the build guide, because I'm actually quite interested in potentially getting at least the files to build my own.
I want to build this for sure.
Well, I was looking at it because first thing I thought of, because Domo has a whole backlog of like the stories and stuff for all of his builds. And I actually was really interested in potentially making body kits for it, because the way the back end is made, you could easily start to make side panels or a cover, or, because it has the brace for the in stock, you could, there's so many combinations you could actually build off of it. I was like, this thing
files. Ooh.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you can.
He has like a whole hardware list on one of the instructions.
Yeah,
and it's not expensive.
No,
either.
it's just simple hardware. The other, again, when you're talking about the flywheelers, it starts to get quite expensive because there's a lot going on in Domo stuff. But this one actually is quite simple, I think, to build for pretty much anybody if you've got a printer. I think it's going to be a really good one. And X-Shot micros, I mean, you could just find them at thrift stores.
That's a really short hardware list, actually.
Yeah, it is really, really small.
Well, and as we've learned, Vile just has them. As do I think, actually.
I had 7 exactly. I don't know how that was possible, but I apparently had 7 micros.
I haven't even I'm the show is behind right now. I haven't even watched this clip yet. I'm really excited to see that.
I gotta be honest. The vibe that I got from this is like exactly what I always imagined I'd want to do with a bunch of, what's that blaster? The little Wii blaster, the switch shot.
No, yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. I just get that vibe.
Sure. That would be really fun. Yeah, I want to build this at some point. It's just so ridiculous. It would be so much fun to take somewhere. After that, talk of the town right now, I think, in a lot of ways, is the Mega Lynx, which is very much still in, sort of beta form. But Chaylo, you actually saw it in person. Did you get to play with it, or did you just get to see it in use, or?
I just got to see it in use. I got to see it up close, but I didn't actually fire it. I did get to see it at the Blaster Expo that they had before RAG, and then I got to see it in action at RAG, saving us all repeatedly from the zombie queen.
That's awesome. So I have a Mega Caliburn, which has like never quite worked right. Like scaling the Caliburn up causes like weird friction problems that I could potentially solve, and I just haven't had time to like take it apart and figure out what's going on. This seems really potentially very slick, and I'm really excited to maybe mess around with it. It also pairs nicely with another thing that we covered in this episode, which is also sort of a work in progress, but it is a 25-round snail-style Mega magazine. Which has the potential to be I don't know if you've seen this.
I
has the potential
have,
to be
I think.
bonkers. Yeah. So that is super cool. And also with the Ranger and stuff out on the market, like Mega's coming back. It seems like.
Just as Hasbro has decided to basically not use it for literally anything.
Right. I mean,
there's enough, I feel like, knockoff ammo sellers at this point of Mega Darts that it'll live on well past it being
live on with the
Vortex.
stupid plastic tip little Valentine darts.
I stocked up on Mega AccuFake back when it was like $20 for 400. And I'm glad I did that.
Mega darts are definitely one of the types of darts that I will sit down and re-glue heads back onto, because I'm trying to future-proof the collection.
Hey, I have found I will still pick them up from a Goodwill outlet, because if you cut them into half darts, the new half megas are like a new meta that's coming up. I'm telling you. Half megas.
I've got my Fire Phoenix, Ice Phoenix.
Yeah, that's right. You did do that review.
I got
from
that
the same
one,
guy who did the drum.
Fun.
Same maker, right? Same maker.
It is the same maker as the drum mag.
Yeah.
Very cool. And then also the Nailer. This is one of these stories that we actually ideally would have caught an episode earlier, but we definitely wanted to bring it up. And it turns out, I was just talking with Not Enough Nerf. It wound up being really good timing because they just made a major revision to the design. So talking about it now is actually really perfect because the ones going after this will have that revision. And it is a modification of the Captain Slug stapler to use. It's like retains the aesthetics and the overall design of it, but it is mag-fed. So
if I recall, it also takes inspiration from one of the Griffin redesigns that's really small.
Because the stapler
here's
is
the thing, though,
Griffin-based.
is the stapler's a Griffin, so it's kind of like the pump action skewer, where the skewer was a T-pull Talon Claw, and then the pump skewer was a Talon Clawed skewer.
I de-stapled your stapler.
Yeah.
But it's got all the aesthetics of the stapler, and it looks pretty cool, honestly.
I actually really
does.
like the look of it. It took me until like right up until we started filming podcast to realize that the battery goes in the grip, because I had seen one of the early prototype images and it took the battery on the side, and I was like, where'd the battery go?
Yeah, I like battery grip just because of the
ESP.
weight balance, but so that's really cool. Excited for that, and excited for our friend Not Enough Nerf to have a blaster out.
I think it's
and
just a
have that
really
going
cool
on.
blaster. Plus, we've seen. I tried looking. This is what I was referring to earlier. I was scrolling through our episode master list, trying to figure out where else Paper Skeleton 3D appeared on our show, because I know he's appeared somewhere before. I just couldn't find out where.
Did you find it? It's possible that it's not tagged correctly in our master spreadsheet.
Probably. I remember it was one of the early episodes. That's all I can really remember. I can't remember if it's. I'm almost want to say I remember Foam Blasted did the shell for a chronograph. I can't remember if Paper Skeleton was the one who did the internals or if that's something else I'm thinking of.
I think you might be right. That rings a bell.
I can't even remember anymore.
Because I remember
Yeah.
I covered that story, so that's why it kind of sounds correct. But I don't know. So I guess sound off in the comments if that's wrong or not.
We've all made a lot of content here. It turns into mush.
The one thing I like
After a
about
while.
this is that we had Not Enough on the podcast. He was talking about how he wanted to get a 3D printed blaster. The first thing he gets is the stapler, and then right after the stapler, basically makes his own and has now got his own that he's carrying.
Production line.
It's like 2 months. We had him in, as a guest in
The
July.
pipeline is real.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we had him here in July, and he just took off on this path, and it's really
That's so
cool to
good.
watch him kind of do it. I mean, obviously we've seen other creators. You got Maritime Foams creating a bunch of fun stuff, and obviously
Some
you've got
awesome
Brad over-
collabs in this space.
Yeah, there's a
Really
lot of
good
really
stuff.
cool collaborations going on. It's really awesome to see.
Well, and we talked about the finalizer, right? The gauntlet that Maritime Foam and Foam Blasted made. Again, creators shared. Finalizer I actually found about through Maritime Foam's channel. He's always making Foam Blasted stuff and showing it off on Instagram, which I really appreciate.
Yeah,
Those partnerships are very, very cool between someone who it's cool because most of the people who are content creators we're also capable to some degree of making stuff, but it's you don't really have time to focus on both. But because everybody sort of bleeds over, all the people who primarily design stuff tend to also make some content, and all the people who primarily make content tend to also design or build some stuff. And so these collaborations, I think these pairings are really natural, and it's really cool
I think
to watch
it's also
that
just
happening.
generally cool because it means that the creator who has some interesting, unique idea in mind that someone else may have not thought of, their audience might also ideally want something similar to that,
Yes.
considering it's part of that community. So
So
to see
true.
them get to collaborate to make something that would fit the audience that they're wanting just is a cool thing in general.
It is.
Because I don't think otherwise we'd have seen something like the Mega XL Gauntlet anytime soon, probably.
yeah.
Yes. And speaking of gauntlets, and also speaking of creators coming up very quickly, the Foam Arm Fryer, and I think, Chaylo, you said you hadn't seen this one. Let me toss a picture of it in for you. It is an arm-mounted arm-mounted rival flywheeler. And where is the thing? Here we go.
Oh, okay. I thought I thought I hadn't seen it,
Oh,
but I think
okay.
I may have now.
Yeah, so it's this. And
It's an arm-mounted Adam Dart's Jupiter, essentially.
Sort of.
essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty
Similar-
much.
similar
I don't
concept.
think it's
It's not
like,
made out of one, obviously, no, but
No, it's well, and the thing that's really cool about it too is the trigger system, which is
The trigger system I cannot help
string-based.
be reminded of just a lawnmower. You're starting your lawnmower, except you're firing a
absolutely.
blaster.
Yeah,
it's like a drawstring.
So Maritime Foam was explaining to me that the string holder is rail mounted, so you can move it to any of the rails on the side of it, or you can put a longer string on it and attach it to anything. So you could, if you blaster mount it, you can attach it to your blaster so the string is wherever you want it to be. If it's on your arm, you can move it to whichever side is more comfortable.
A full extension
really,
of your
really
arm.
Clever.
I think that's an interesting concept, a full extension of your arm in the direction you need it to go. If you fully extend the arm, you can it would
so it's
set
just attached to your gear, and as soon as you just sort of Mega Man style. This is my Mega Buster. Pew 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 pew.
This is a more interesting one, but I think I could see someone like mounting it to their chest rig or whatever, and then like being able to draw string using their mouth or something, and like HVZ is like
totally.
I'm all out of ammo, pull the thing.
Absolutely.
You could shoulder mount it and do that.
The thing that might be most impressive about this is the designer's first design that's public.
That's actually really
they're
polished
apparently
for a first design.
Well, they're apparently like in college. Reminds me of Taffy, who
I know.
The skewer was part of their application to engineering school. And so this has a similar vibe. To see something like this, and to immediately, honestly, the fact that you can look at it and go like, oh, it's kind of like the Outer Darts Jupiter. That's a company, right? That meant like Luke's been doing this for so long, and he has like designers working with him. And the Jupiter is amazing, but for someone in college to just come up with this, I think is just super impressive. So I really hope we see more from them in the future. Sand Shark Labs. Okay. That's important to say. And then we have the Renfield Mark II. Grim, you covered this. It's essentially an update of the Renfield, right?
Yeah, all that's changed from what I can tell is the aesthetics, and that it has a double stack mag rather than a single stack and takes stripper clips. So you can fast reload all the shells in if you keep a couple stripper clips on you into the magazine.
And
wait, hold on.
Oh yeah, the stripper clip thing, right? Yeah.
Why would you want a stripper clip when you could just have another magazine?
It's for loading afterwards. So if you just quickly put them all into the stripper clip, you can then just put it into the mag really quick. It's just for like after.
But if you have the time to load the stripper clip, why wouldn't you just load another mag?
Because World War II weebs want their M1
Garand. It's the experience, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, why would
I don't know what else to tell you.
Because you can.
Exactly.
There you go.
Look, as a person who owns like hundreds of actual stripper clips, it's to me that's kind of cool, because I'm like, oh hey,
new Vile Lord just drops hundreds of stripper clips apparently.
Yeah. People have asked numerous times, how could I make something that fed with stripper clips? Like, well, it'd have to take shells.
Yep.
That's the only way to do it.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, I also think that just considering how popular the Kieran was, the injection molded version of the Renfield, seeing a new version that has new features, it'll probably do fairly well because it has a following at this point. So it'll be interesting to actually see them on the field potentially at some point.
This speaks back to this thing we always talk about our hobby that makes it unique from airsoft, from paintball, is you have access to all this variety. There's so many different ways to play with our ammo and to design things, and you don't have to have a reason.
The only time I think I ever saw a shell ejecting airsoft blaster that wasn't a shotgun was like this $1,000 full metal AR replica thing.
God.
And it's just like you have so much ammo in airsoft. It was the most unpractical thing in the world because you got such an ammo debuff compared to everyone else, and you were just dropping shells everywhere. It was just,
and it's not as bad in Nerf, but we have the same problem of shell ejection is neat, but it's horrifically inefficient. But that's not cool, the point. It goes clackety clack and the thing goes flying. It's neat.
It's neat for plinking, but I will say for in game, shell fed is horrible. Not just because of inefficiencies,
I don't know.
but because
I've seen
of
people use it to great effect in HVZ. It's pretty fun.
I could get it maybe outdoor, but there's shells on the ground. You can trip over those, especially if it's indoor.
I mean, there's shells for the sake of shell ejecting, and there's shells for the sake of variable ammo, right?
Yeah, variable ammo shotgun
shells.
Rounds, or the Moab only works because it uses shells and actually operates like an actual minigun does.
Right.
But even then,
if you brought a Moab, you brought a Moab to an indoor event, people will be mad at you and make you clean up your mess.
Yeah, I mean, Walcom brought Moab to rag, so...
Oh my god.
Oh no!
Hats off.
There's probably still pieces of chain link.
He's a madman and I love him.
That's great. I already love it.
How many people did he hire to clean up after?
All of us, we all cleaned up. It was beautiful.
Oh, I'm sure.
I think he actually had a bag catching the ammo. Catching
there
the
you
shells.
go. It's catching the shells.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
otherwise
I
it
know
would have
they
been
exist
a
for the,
tripping hazard.
Clever.
I know the shotgun, which one has a dart catcher that you can put in.
The
for
Firefly has a dart catcher,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there is one?
Yep.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
You could get it.
There was
from-
somebody running one at RAG with the shell
Because
catcher.
I remember American
That's
Films
cool.
talked about using Fireflies at wars before. It's not super bad to just get a dart catcher for
Well,
it
and
then run it.
Firefly, you're very controlled how many shots you're doing. You're not
Yeah.
you're not spraying shells on the ground. Finally on this list is The Alchemist by Silly Butts, which is a story that we've pushed back multiple episodes by Silly's request, because we kind of wanted to time it with the actual availability, at least of hardware, so that people could actually go out and check it out and consider building them beyond the beta testers. And Silly is building this essentially as taking sort of like all of the things that a lot of the things that the hobby has sort of figured out about Springers and attempting to sort of put it all into one blaster in his
'cause
style.
I think one of his earliest edits was edits to the Talon Claw, and then later he made the Pump Skewer, and then he got his hands on a bunch of other stuff like the SBL at End War 2022. So it's interesting seeing like this like later, here's my take on it now that I've like had all this time to look at other interesting designs and how they function.
Mm-hmm. I think The Alchemist is super cool. I'm really excited about it. We don't need to spend a ton of time on it today because I'm working on booking Silly for the podcast, and so hopefully we'll have him on soon to chat about it.
I think I may have seen one of those at RAG too.
There probably was. There's a bunch of photos of it in action, and I want to say that at least one of them was at RAG.
There were also a number of beta testers for it, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's where all the
I saw it
photos
at the
came from. I know
expo.
that like Zoomed Out Tahova had one, Super Stressed had one. I don't know, a handful of people that I've
I think
seen
Chance
pictures
had
of
one
them.
at some point.
Yeah, that sounds right. And I'm just going by, when I'm getting all the photos for the show, they were all tagged with the names of the people who had them. So
Yeah.
I'm sure someone had one there. I'm trying to figure out, and this is, we're getting close to the end of our first year of doing this show. So next year we're going to start to be able to sort of like look for seasonal patterns. And I'm a little bit curious if, and part of it, a couple of these, like I said, we probably should have reported on an episode prior, but like, is there a seasonal effect of like community blaster releases? Because this just feels like an awful lot to come out at the same time. But I can't look at October last year.
I wonder if it's a thing where people are at games during the summer and then they figure out something that they want and then go make
That's
something
true.
that they want afterward.
That's true. And I mean, there's a big rush of like it's kind of HVZ season. Like
The
a
other
lot
thing
of
I
them
could argue is
happen
that
around this year,
someone may
especially
have
in the
been-
West Coast.
The other thing I would argue is that I'd almost say that some people may have been working on design all year and then they had extra time to get most of it done during the summer and then it just gets finished up in fall.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say that, if you look at like Conductor's Revolver, well, obviously you've been seeing Domo kind of work off and on that blaster for quite a while. And then you see the Nailer, which quite literally came up within like a month and a half.
Yes.
Like it came up out of nowhere pretty fast, actually, when all things
Yeah, for
considered.
sure.
So, there's, and then you got Alchemist, Silly's got a lot of projects going on. So that
Silly
could've
has
stopped.
all of the projects.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a weird mix a lot of times.
They are
just
all very
timing.
different. I mean, and Foam Arm Fryer, right, came out
Yeah.
of nowhere.
Yeah, it just came
Nobody
out
had
of
talked to
nowhere.
this person previously.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's true. There's a lot of variety of how these all came about. So maybe it's just coincidence, but I kind of look forward to starting to draw patterns.
Yeah. think it'd be interesting.
As we do this for a second year and see what months kind of look similar. Is this sort of an HVZ season? It kind of feels like it is, especially looking at the captain's schedule here.
It feels like it because we've covered a lot of HVZ events. Because I know after the pandemic, a lot of people were hesitant to open stuff and events got pushed back.
That's right.
Then we had End War 2023 this year. We had Maryland Mayhem. We had RAG. We have all these other events like
Survival
Vampires
Fest.
Mayhem's
Yeah.
earlier in the year. But part of that I think is just because it's East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
and outdoors.
I'm going to an
Seems a little bit
HVZ event in like literally 2 days. Z13 over in Detroit.
Some of it's just a matter of, once upon a time, End War was the only event. Now there are so
Right.
many, they have to spread them out through the year to be able to
true.
have enough time. They can't all be in June anymore. They can't all be in July. Nobody wants them in June and July. Yeah, we're available, but it's 90 everywhere in July now.
Yeah, from
You
what
know,
I
let
can
it go to
recall-
October when it's 80 in California. I can deal with that.
Yeah.
From what I can recall, anyways, before End War, it was just Nations versus Zombies, and then a bunch of invitational HVZs that you could just show up to, but they weren't necessarily grand, big events that as many people as possible attended.
But now we've got, Pennsylvania Survival Fest was a 3-day event. Mayhem was a 3-day event. End War, Ragnar Oktoberfest. Those all have the expo, the HVZ, and the tournament and or pickup wars all in one event.
I was just kind of worried about how HVZ as a whole was going to be doing after the pandemic, so it's nice to see so many different big scale HVZ events.
Well, so why don't we hear some of that first person? Because we could start with Ragnar Oktoberfest with the good captain here. It's one of those big multi-day wild things. Seems well and alive, right? How was it? Was there glory and honor to be found at Ragfest
Absolutely.
this year?
It was very well done. The expo, they had Silver Fox, Out of Darts, all the big names that you would expect to be at something like that. Most of them were there, especially the ones from the west side, which there's plenty of them especially in the Pacific Northwest. So that was cool, going in, getting to look at all the new stuff that people had, blasters people had, Walcom had the Moab on display, other people had their individual personal custom stuff on display. There were people just modding in the corner because they desperately needed to finish their blaster for the HVZ the next day, because no one in this hobby ever... Nobody procrastinates in this hobby. Nobody.
Exactly.
No.
It was kind of funny. I was literally talking with at 2022 Endor. I was talking with Bobo and friends. I was like, "Oh God, I haven't finished this stuff I need to sell at FoamCon, and I got 24 hours or other stuff." Bobo was still working on his Strife. I think he made a lightning storm battery stock last minute and was whipping out the. it's just
duct tape and baling wire. Yeah,
exactly.
And then the Stalking Dead event was, as always, wonderful fun. They did it pirate themed, and so our contingent that came down from the Pacific Northwest, we decided we are not going to take this remotely seriously. We are going full pirate. So my loadout was 12 single shot pistols. I had 10 of the Busby flintlocks. I had one of the Fortnite flintlocks, and I had one AliExpress flintlock. And that's all I ran, and I still made it almost to the very end.
That's so fun.
And it was fun, and it was silly, and it was a good time. And then the next day they had both the pickup wars, and they had the 5v5 tournament, which their tournament was so well run. They've got the boxes that are all linked together, and it all goes to a computer, and they had paintball refs on the sidelines making sure everything was clean, and they were not letting anyone get away with anything. And it was so refreshing seeing people get called, you're out, get out. It took you too long, double respawn, that'll teach you. Or line faults, people jumping in with they still have their blaster down or whatever. No one got away with anything, and the first couple of rounds people were getting called constantly by the refs, and eventually people figured out how to follow the rules, and so there was a lot less of that as the game went on, and it made for a very, very clean tournament. There was nobody claiming that people were cheating. There was nobody claiming that people weren't taking their hits, because nobody could get away with that. And it made for much better sportsmanship just in general, and it was just a pleasure to watch. And the way they did the announcing, they had the guy live streaming, bringing up guests, bringing up team captains, bringing in influencers, talking about the rounds. It just was wonderfully well run, and that was just impressive to see, and I'm hoping we see more of that that technology becomes readily available, and more events and more clubs can buy those kits to make their competitive play better, because that's something we've been trying to grow and have been trying to push. And now that X-Shot has a pro blaster, Dart Zone has pro blasters, and Nerf is finally getting into the pro world, I'm hoping that's something that we're going to see a huge growth in competitive nerf.
Right.
And because for a lot of places, they don't have the outlet for it. We got people up here who are building, 200, 300, 400 FPS blasters, but nobody is running events that allowed those.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping if we see more competitive play, we'll get to see more of those high-tuned, really, real dialed-in custom blasters have a place to shine.
Pacific Northwest, the only one that I can remember is that SFI now runs like what I think they call it Waffle, I think.
That started this year. They finally got Waffle going, and it was a slow start this year. It was mostly just showing up and doing random pickup battles. We weren't actually doing teams versus teams, and there wasn't any real sense of competition. And so next year they're going to start trying to push, actual competitive play, get teams going, get a league going, and be able to actually take a competitive, an actual truly competitive team to some of these bigger events and be able to field them.
I was down in San Diego originally, and that's now Red Tide as one of the competitive groups, and it was interesting because they kind of were there's only a handful of them around the U.S. They're kind of sprinkled here and there. And that was a group that was really big about, they got an indoor place. They started actually setting up teams, and then they were doing like scoring between teams, and they were trying to do, so it's funny to see that groups that were kind of getting that first foot start and head start in getting competitive are now able to acquire things to become even more tuned and better at what they're doing. It's really awesome to hear, especially from RAG, such a, a big event like that, and see. I think Red Tide went up to that event.
They won.
Yeah, they did.
They won. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I was going to say
if they've been drilling, it showed, because they were a well-oiled machine. Once they managed to acquire control of the field, they never gave it back up.
Oh yeah,
and
they were good.
That requires training. That requires coordination, and you could see it. These guys had practiced.
Yeah, before I moved, because I moved coming up on 2 years now, but prior to that, when I first was getting into the hobby and playing with them, it used to be out in just typical park battles, but then somebody acquired ability to be at an indoor event. I think it was a church, and they had like a basketball court. So they started setting up full competitive play stuff, and they would set up fields, and it would be like a capture the flag or whatever type of event, and it was very, very fast paced. So it's gotten better and better, and obviously it's sounding like they're becoming pretty well tuned as a team. So that's, again, really awesome to hear.
Yep.
That's awesome. So the next thing that you did recently was traveling to Europe, and forgive me, what were you doing there?
So Europe actually happened before RAG.
That was
originally,
before, okay.
Yeah, originally the plan was to go to Foam Fest. Because that's why I went to Europe last year. And last year I did it in the wrong order. I did 2 weeks of touring Europe and then went to Foam Fest. And by the time I got there, I was completely exhausted and just dead to the world, just in a coma. People coming up going, "It's so great to meet you," and me just kind of drooling in the corner. So the plan this year was to go to Foam Fest first and then tour Europe. But Foam Fest got canceled.
Right.
But I'd already made plans to go to Europe, and I'd invited Sergeant Deplorable to go with me because he was actually born in Frankfurt, but they moved when his father was in the military, and they moved when he was like 2, and so he didn't remember it, and so people kept claiming that, well, if you don't remember, it doesn't count. So they're like, well, fine, I'll take him back to Frankfurt. So we decided to just go anyway, and we ended up going later in the year because that's what was recommended to us by the people we were going to be staying with, that the weather's nicer, there's less tourists, it'll be much better if you come in September. So we did that, and it was a lot of fun. We flew into England specifically so that we could go see the HMS Victory, because we are both Napoleonic War junkies, and so we wanted to go see the Victory, and that was amazing to see. We got to go inside and go through the whole tour, and it was awesome. Then we got on a ferry and went to France and met up with a guy who runs kind of the French equivalent of Afterworlds. So he has property in France, and it's large enough that he runs LARPs there, and he runs Old West LARPs, and he runs Firefly-themed LARPs, and Stargate-themed LARPs, and zombie-themed LARPs. And it just sounds like an absolute blast. I got to eat snails for the first time. I had escargot. It was actually just tasted like shrimp scampi with a slightly different texture, but it was absolutely delicious. I was expecting it to have like a slimy texture. No, it was like Slightly different than shrimp, but it just was garlic and butter and very tender and delicious.
Sounds like Jolt wants that to Escar stop.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Just a little.
I was gonna say I'll have to try it at some point.
Yeah,
'cause shrimp
until you've
scampi
tried
I
it, don't
love.
knock it. We were,
Yeah.
like I said,
Yeah.
we were expecting it to be, slimy, but no, it was
I don't
like
think I can
a
knock
really
on it.
tender
It's too
steak.
jiggly.
No, it isn't. That's the thing, is it's not. It's more like calamari or, like I said, a bit like shrimp. We were expecting it to be, slimy and floppy, but no, it's meat. Then we got on a train. We went to Paris. We got on another train. We went to Germany. We met up with Sir Scorp in Germany. Went and toured Frankfurt. Bought a lot of Lego. Went to Legoland
All
Deutschland.
good stories end with bought a lot of Lego.
Yeah,
Oh,
we went
absolutely.
To, we went
you
to
got to go to
Legoland.
Legoland.
Yeah,
Oh,
we went to
that's so
Legoland
good.
Deutschland. Bought a lot more Lego.
Of course.
We did not have enough time in
Did you-
Legoland. We should have scheduled more time. We planned to go back and just have an entire day there.
Yeah, really. Did you wind up shipping a bunch of Lego back?
No, we both brought an extra suitcase to
Nice.
You knew what you were
That's
gonna
smart.
do.
We knew what we
knew.
were about. We both had a suitcase rolled up in our other bag. Yeah, we don't need change of clothes. No, suitcase for Lego.
I know the German scene in general is just really cool over there. They have a lot of LARP stuff, and I know it's not Nerf related, but I remember one of the things Bobo had mentioned he wanted to go back for is Oktoberfest up there, I believe is what it's called.
Yeah, their big LARP event is called Conquest, and they get people from... LARP is also absolutely huge in Denmark, and the Danes will invade Germany for Conquest. I got to stay with the Danes last year, and I got to see their LARP setup, and it was just mind-boggling. There's nothing like it in America. Anyway, we then got back on a train and went to Switzerland and met up with Pewtek, the guy who developed the Pew Pew, Pippo. And he was nothing like what I expected. I expected him to be far more serious, and he was silly and goofy, and it was just a blast. We went and had pizza. And despite having developed the Pew Pew, the man has never been to a Nerf event.
Oh my god.
Never once. He's tried. There is Nerfing in Switzerland and Germany right across the border, but just his schedule has never allowed it for years. So...
Pain.
That was
Someday.
Yeah, he's like, you've developed one of the single best blasters in the entire hobby, and you've never got to shoot anyone with it?
That kind
Someday
of
the
reminds me
man-
of Silly, because Silly lives all the way up in like really far north. So he just stays in his house and designs, and he seldom gets to go to events. Like I don't think it was his first, but one of his earliest events I think was Endwar 2022. Because when I first met him, he hadn't been to an event, I don't think, because there isn't a club up there.
Well, you should start one.
Yeah. I mean, I don't get to go to a lot of stuff. I've more than silly, but every time I do, it's a big planned trip because I'm trying to start something locally, but it can be a challenge.
It takes time.
Hopefully,
It's kind of the same for me. There wasn't a scene at all when I got started in my area. The KCNC now exists. I just have trouble going up there very often.
Yeah.
So we've been trying for the longest time to start up stuff in my area, and now we actually finally have a person who has access to a church big field that we get to use. And we're having a war on the 27th. It's fun. We don't have tons of people that show up, but it's fun, just small events with friends, and it's good. It's nice. I like it.
We're just spoiled for choice in the Pacific Northwest. I could go to a Nerf event every weekend if I wanted to.
You really are.
Which unfortunately means I just don't have time for anything. Anyway, we got back on the train. We went to France. We went to Carcassonne. I played Carcassonne on the walls of Carcassonne. It was a 15-year vow to myself that I completed, and it was lovely. Then we got on a plane and flew home. It was lovely. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So
we did do a little bit of nerfing in each country. I brought 2 blasters so that I could say that I nerfed in France, I nerfed in Switzerland, I nerfed in Germany.
That's
we
great.
did not. No, we did nerf in England very, very briefly.
Got out and just pewed a couple times over the London Bridge.
Yep.
Called it good. That's sweet. Real vacations. Imagine that. Sounds like a great time. Okay, so I got the sequence wrong, but the last thing is Mall Mutation Madness.
Yeah, that was last weekend in St. Peters, Missouri.
Right. why it's funny because it's like it feels like such a random place for such a cool event to come up, but I mean it just has to do with the
doesn't quite
relationship
surprise me as
between
much. One of the big HVZ things, like Nations vs. Zombie, took place in Springfield, and so did other
right.
events previously at the I think it's Missouri State University is specifically where it is. And then
Well, I feel like this has more to do with the relationship with the mall, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, in
Like
this case, it
how
has
often
more to
do
do
you
with
have
that.
a relationship like that?
It's kind of interesting. I eventually want to go attend one because I spend a lot of time in Missouri in general because it's kind of like my home away from home state. I really love the place in general. So
Yeah, I cannot recommend Mall Madness enough. I think they actually sold out this year, so you got to get your tickets early because they can only have 200 people because of fire code or whatever.
Yeah,
Well,
that makes sense.
Well, how was it? Can you recount the because it's an all night event?
It is.
Which is wild. Maybe you can recount to us how it went.
Right. So it starts at 10 o'clock. We got there plenty early, got all set up and all of that. And it kicks off at 10 o'clock, and it went until, this time it went until 3:30. They actually had a hard cutoff because they had to have time to get everything cleaned up. But it's an absolutely amazing event. They put out an absolutely obscene amount of cover. They bring in just pallets full of cardboard boxes and set up all these barricades all through the mall hallways. It's a big T-shaped mall, so you've got multiple corridors that you're going down. The food court is a very convenient staging area. The way things are set up this year was definitely better than last year. I don't know if it'll still be set up that way next year because they're at the whim of what's available in the mall. There used to be an arcade that wasn't there anymore, and it was just empty, so that's where the staging area was, which was conveniently you accessed going through the safe zone, the staging area, the food court. Last year, to get to admin, to level up your character or whatever, you had to go out and around the corner and fight the zombies to get to admin, to be able to check in, to be able to upgrade, to be able to get better stuff. Now it was a lot easier and a lot safer. They'd also streamlined that so it was much smoother. It's very different than any other HVZ I've ever been to because they do have special classes for humans. They do have levels. All the zombies are super zombies, and the zombies can level up in their super ability and become more powerful super zombies.
So it's almost like a pseudo, not equal start, but equal potential type of thing.
Yeah, and it's not quite. It's a LARP. I mean, all HVZs are a LARP when you think about it. You're pretending to be human, survivors pretending to hunt zombies. There's a very real LARP part to that, and some people lean into it more or less. Obviously, I lean more into it with the whole Captain Xavier thing. But this one, again, you've got class levels, you've got medics, you've got engineers, you've got scouts, you've got armor. The zombies have noodle zombies, claw zombies, shield zombies, rooter zombies, which have rings that make them impervious. And again, they can, every time they take out a human, the zombie levels up and gets a more powerful version of that special ability, maxing out at like level 6 or something. And at level 6, you get then a super ability, an even more super ability of some kind. And it's really, really cool. Last year, you didn't have to complete missions if you didn't want to because you leveled up by taking out zombies. So you could just go out and hunt zombies and collect the XP and level up that way and just ignore the missions. And that's what we did. We chose to not try to complete the missions, but instead to help other human groups complete the missions because there weren't enough resources for everyone to complete the missions, and the goal being to try to get the humans to fight each other over resources, and instead we just decided, right, we're not going to go for resources, we'll help you guys, there's no need to shoot each other, because if we start shooting each other, we'll all be dead by midnight, which was my goal, but nobody would let me die. This year, if you wanted
built
to
your army too well, congratulations.
Exactly. I make the threat that I want to be dead by midnight, and they absolutely refuse to let it happen. One of these days, I will actually try to die by midnight just to see what they do. It'll be interesting to see. But this year, you kind of had to complete the missions if you wanted to level up, because they made it harder to level with just XP. It was much easier to level by doing missions. And so we decided to focus on the missions, and we were the only squad to complete all primary and secondary missions.
Oh.
And so we got the little medal. We were awarded the Best Human Squad award. That's the other neat thing about Mall Madness that I've never seen any other HVZ do. They actually track your stats. Everything is tracked both by who did it and when they did it. So there are timestamps, and then there are awards and honors and medals and trophies and stuff that's given out. And most of them are based on stats. So they are objectively who was the first zombie to tag a human, who was the first human to get tagged, who was the last zombie to get a tag, and who was the last zombie or human to get tagged. All of that is tracked by timestamp, and they've got awards for it. And some of them are like, that's a good award. I was the first zombie to tag a human. And other ones, it's not so great an award because you were the first human to get tagged. But somebody has to be. But somebody has to be the first zombie or human to get tagged. And then which squad completed the most missions or got the highest number of levels. Also, which human got the most levels. And stuff like that, which are all objective. It's just if you got the most points, you get the award. And then there were two that were subjective. There was one where the guy who runs the event, Kyle, he decides who he thought was the best player, or the most energetic player, or who really got into the spirit of things, or had the best play, jumping over a barricade and going into a barrel roll and getting a tag, stuff like that he then gives out. And then there's one where the players get to vote on who do we think was the GOAT, who was the best player. And so it's really, really fun to actually be able, as you say, to get achievements.
Would you say, interestingly enough, that because of the limit of how many players they can have, that's what leads to this environment that's conducive of them being able to track player stats and do all this stuff?
Oh, absolutely. And the fact that it's in a mall, and it's very easy for players to get back to a central location, as opposed to being on a college campus that's, multiple square miles and you're spread out all over the place. It makes it very difficult to communicate to all of the players. Okay, we need you all to go back to safe zone so we can reset the field. At the mall, they can blow a whistle. Everybody hears it. You all go back. They reset the field. They reset MacGuffins. They upgrade to the next missions. And it's really, really quick.
College campus HVZs are kind of like, all right, good luck, everybody. I hope you have a good time.
Yeah.
Speaking of which,
we'll go back
because
from
it's
you
at
in
the
a few
mall,
hours.
It's on the lower level, correct? They did all of it on the lower level.
Yeah, it's only on the first floor.
Do they have anybody keeping track of it up above in the higher level to just kind of keep an eye on the event? Do they have anybody up there? I'm just curious.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I know there were security guards up there, and there were all the escalators and all the stairs were blocked off.
Okay.
So people couldn't get up there without
I was just curious if they had event staff keeping track of what was going on. If it was a big event area, they could just be up there and have kind of the bird's eye view or not. I just didn't know if that's how they were running it.
I think I remember getting the vibe from the first time we talked about Mall Mutation Madness that their deal with the mall only gives them access to the first floor. I don't think even the admins or the organizers are allowed to go to the second floor.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm sure the mall is concerned about physical activity in the mall, someone falling off the railing or something.
Liability and all
things
of that.
Get really crazy. So they probably don't let anyone up there at all. Now, of course, it's an HVZ, so everybody gets turned eventually. How did it happen for you?
No,
did humans win?
No,
we didn't at all.
But,
did I miss? Okay,
wait for it. Once a squad had completed all of their primary objectives, they could simply declare themselves survivors and leave. Or
really,
they could take the survivor option. At which point they couldn't play humans anymore. They could go then play zombies if they wanted to. They didn't have to,
fun.
But you
that's
could.
So fun.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
I've never seen that before, where there was so the squad had to complete all of their the primary objectives, but then it was an individual choice to leave play or not.
Right.
So if one person decided, no, I want to survive, then they could, and the rest of the squad could continue to fight.
I love that.
We collectively, once we'd finished all the primary and all of the secondary, all of my squad that was still in play, we'd lost 2 people. We all decided to take the survivor option.
Huh.
Because it's very, very rare that we ever get to. And it was also very clear at that point that the tides had turned. The humans were not going to complete the tertiary, the final objectives. Most of the squads hadn't even finished all 3 of their secondary objectives. In fact, we were the only squad to ever finish all of the secondary objectives. So there was no hope. It was going to be a less than glorious last stand.
Interesting. That's really interesting for them to have an out like that for the humans. Yeah, I don't feel like I've ever seen it.
It reminds me of Escape the Planet game modes I see in video games, or Dead by Daylight, where you can kind of just leave because you completed your objectives.
Yeah, exactly.
How about at Rag though?
At Rag, I unfortunately had an ignominious. Nobody was watching our six, and a zombie just wandered up and tagged a whole bunch of us from behind while we were holding the line, which is never feels good, but you know, that's what happens.
That's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, and so, but it was like I think I made it to like the last 10 or so minutes. So I wasn't a zombie for very long, and the humans unfortunately did not manage to complete the final objective. They were so close though, and though they were given a lot of help, they were given more time than they were originally supposed to have, and the final boss's hit points were significantly reduced. But it was down to only 18 hit points when the final humans were wiped out.
Yeah.
So they put up a good fight, and it was a really cool final boss. It was a big animatronic squid with light up targets that you had to shoot at.
Whoa.
And as you hit the target, you could actually see that the health bar was going down, so you knew when you were getting close. And like I said, Rag has a lot of really cool technology that if the rest of the hobby could catch up to, it would be good.
That sounds pretty awesome.
From what I understand as well, zombies also have quests and objectives, right? At Rag.
Yes, at both Rag and at Mall Madness. So there are things that the zombies are trying to do other than just turn everybody.
I remember hearing from the zombie queen about it, that like someone had basically handed Luchathor his quests and was like, "Oh, good luck out there," and they didn't understand how Luchathor do. Yeah. Yeah, so it's like one of the challenges he was given was dance with 5 humans and not get tagged out, and he like returned apparently like 5 minutes later. He's like, done.
Yeah. The way that the zombies unlocked super zombies was by completing quests. One of them, there was a conga line zombie where however many zombies you have in the conga line, you have to shoot the zombie at the back first, and then they are stunned, and then you have to the next one that's in the very back. And so if it's a really long line, you've got a whole bunch of impervious zombies coming at you, and you have to get the one at the very end of the line. And to do that, you had to get humans to dance with you. So he, of course, went out and started doing Fortnite dances at humans, and they just instinctively Fortnite danced back. Well, that's one, as soon as you get 5 people to do it, and if like 5 people did it all at once, as, you know...
Right, you're just done.
As kids will these days. I just stared at him like, what are you doing?
That's so funny.
There was another one where you had to get humans to thank you.
Huh.
And so, like, they would give them, like, oh, no, there's more humans around the corner, or I saw a MacGuffin over there, or, bro, I won't tag you, go ahead. And so people would, like, what, no gratitude? You're like, oh, yeah, thank you, man. Like, okay, that's one.
I remember, this kind of reminds me of what I did at End War 2022. Me, Bobo, and, like, SFI crew, plus a bunch of other people were all zombies. But we didn't tag anybody. We went around and we called ourselves Chaos Squad. We had merch that we handed out, and we had a thing called we had a D&D deck of many things. And depending on what you drew, we'd go up to a human, have them draw something, and they'd be given a challenge or an objective, or they'd just be given like a $10 coupon to SFI or something like that.
That's cool.
But essentially, what could happen is it'd be like, go touch the boomer pole while it's active and survive or something like that, and you get like this cool keychain that says I survived in the Chaos Squad 2022.
Oh, very cool
random stuff. So I remember one time we had Boomstick Mods draw a card, and he won like a gift card that was like one of the larger ones, and then we ended up with this weird scene where some of the zombies were rezzing, and we were just like, protect Boomstick, and everyone was like holding off the rest of the zombies from him, even though we ourselves were zombies, to get them back to the humans. Because our objective was we were not going to tag any humans. We'd just hand out challenges and spread merriment between both zombies and humans alike.
Very cool. West versus Zombies is kind of like that. Back when they had that back pre-pandemic, they haven't had one since. But rather than it being, a large human objective where we're all trying to go complete the same mission, it was small squads of humans were given individual quests to go work on. And when you completed them, you then got raffle tickets that could be either used to buy stuff, like flywheel cages, motors, magazines, darts, whatever. Or you could actually put them in to win larger prizes that had been donated for raffles. So there was a raffle for a Caliburn, there was a raffle for some vintage blasters, there were lots of for new stuff. But the zombies also got the same kinds of quests. And some of it was like, go pick up 20 darts so that, dart sweep at the end of the day would be easier. But other things are like, get a picture with a human. It's worth more if you're not tagged when you get the picture. So yeah, similar silly quests and weird stuff that even though you got turned into a zombie, the zombies were still getting quests that gave them the raffle tickets. So you were still able to get prizes even though you'd been taken out.
That's cool.
Because you got raffle tickets for every human you tagged. You got raffle tickets for cleaning up darts. You got raffle tickets for completing quests. So everyone still had the opportunity to get the loot.
I think stuff like that is just something I'd like to see more and a lot more HVZs going forward, because it kind of helps break down the stigma that some players may have for becoming a zombie and incentivizes the gameplay of it.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It's really thoughtful game design. There's no real losing.
Yes. There's as we say, most likely you've simply joined the winning team because the humans so rarely win.
Right.
Every once in a while they manage. But
except at Mall Mutation Madness, apparently.
Although
I guess they still didn't win per se. Just
but I absolutely feel that it was winnable. We were just not organized enough. If the humans had been more organized and had worked together better, we did work together very well. There were squads that were just going out and completing objectives basically for everybody, but it was very much one group that was doing that, and if it had been more organized, we absolutely could have just powered through the primary and secondary objectives and managed to actually start working on the tertiary objectives before the horde grew too big. But we didn't, and we just ran out of time. And some of that was mechanics, because the leveling up system was still took longer than it we would have liked. And so a lot of players were out of play trying to get their squad leveled up instead of being out in the field playing. And that's just a matter of they need more staff, and that's been discussed to ad nauseum at this point. They know they need more staff, and so people are going, okay, well, how can we get you more staff? What if players had to work in admin for a half hour during the game? Or if you could volunteer for a shift in admin in exchange for a level or discount on your tickets or something. So that's being worked on, and that will hopefully be better next year. It was better this year than it was last year, so I have no doubt that they will improve staff.
Everyone always needs more staff.
It's the bane of
volunteers. Volunteers are the center of any event like this.
Nobody wants to sit out and watch everyone else have fun. We all want to play. And so I think the idea of having people volunteer for shifts, or when you get turned, the first half hour after you're turned, you work in admin. That's kind of how
a cool idea.
Afterworlds
Actually, that would be a great idea.
If you get killed in Afterworlds, you have to go spend a half hour in what's called Z Camp, playing an NPC for a half hour, and then you can go back in as your character. So they always have NPC. They have plenty of NPCs because everyone has to play an NPC shift at some point.
Interesting.
But yeah, there's lots of ways that they could do it, and we'll be discussing it for the next year and seeing what we can do to help and how they can improve it. I would love it if they had the technology and the resources that RAG has, because an awful lot of what RAG does is all RFID based.
Wow.
So when a zombie tags a human, you both go to a check-in station. The zombie flashes their tag, you flash theirs, and it's recorded this zombie killed this human. And that way they're able to create a tree of which zombies killed which humans.
Really handy.
It's clever. Really handy, and they could RFID tag the MacGuffins that you're collecting. And so
I was just looking at their website that has the actual diagram of the results,
and that's how they do it. And also your lives are recorded through the RFID. So every time you get shot by another human, you go back to your base and flash your RFID chip, and it reduces your life count. And if you get down to 0, then you turn into a zombie. But you could, if they had that. They could do that with MacGuffins. You could have RFID tagged MacGuffins, and so if you go out and you get the MacGuffin, you come back, you flash your individual RFID chip, you flash the MacGuffin you got, and then it would record it. but that's expensive.
If Nerf Ball can do it, so can we.
Yeah, exactly. It's a matter of resources and having the resources to acquire all of the RFID chips, the code, all of that.
Of course,
it's expensive. It's
RFID
time
chips
consuming.
are astonishingly, like, if you can get them in bulk, they're less expensive than they seem. But it's still an expense. It's still something you have to work
It's an
out.
investment.
It's an investment,
and having backups for everything in case something goes down, because you can't have failures like that in the
if you have if that system fails mid game, then the whole game just comes to a screeching halt. They were doing it all through paperwork, which again, like I said, improved it from last year, because last year they had someone who was having to put it into a spreadsheet.
Oh God!
While you were in the line, now you filled out
Oof.
paperwork, and someone just validated the paperwork, and then the paperwork went into a pile, and someone took the paperwork and put it into a spreadsheet.
Speaking of, we were mentioning Hitchhiker's Guide. It's very Vogon style management of the data.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that tag form is blue.
I'm gonna force a transition here because
it's about time. I'd say. I think I've had my bit.
We're gonna come back to you, but we're gonna take a little bit of a break from that, and we have two little things to do here. One of them is we now have a Ko-fi where you can subscribe to support the show and the podcast by subscribing for $5 a month or more, as one generous subscriber recently did. Thank you so much. I'm not going to name them unless they want to be named, but
you know who you are and you're insane.
You know who you are. One of the things that grants you is the opportunity to ask our guests questions. And I have a couple questions from our supporters for the captain. The first one from Ghost. Your videos have helped me through hard times and good. Whether it's pontificating the finer points of a strife rewire or shoving a K-26 in every Springer I've ever heard of, to the captain's adventures, from Adria to Afterworlds, what has been your favorite moment in your filming portfolio so far?
Oh, that's a tough one.
There's a lot of moments.
Yeah.
I saw that question and I was like, ooh, that's going to be a good one.
My favorite Nerf moment is still the final stand at Ragnarok Oktoberfest 2018. Because, as we mentioned, the humans rarely win, and there wasn't even supposed to be a human victory condition, and we still managed to win. Because we ran the clock. The goal was they were just going to keep sending waves at zombies at the last stand until all the humans were dead. But we held so many waves, they ran out of time and we had to get off the site. So a human victory was declared in a game with no human victory condition. And we could not have held one more wave. I was down to an empty auto strife and a sword, just spitting my defiance at the horde. That was an amazing last stand.
That's cool. Yeah, I've seen that video too. Isn't that the video that's out there?
I've got a video. I think I've got some footage, and I know other people got footage of it. So
yeah,
it was pretty amazing.
Next question from Iron Gopher, a little more lighthearted. When will you be making a Vortex proton pack to shoot tiny Captain America shields for Captainly solidarity?
Probably never.
I was trying to think,
sure how would you do that?
You'd have to have a tube magazine that's like half a mile tall, sticking out of the back of your backpack.
Either that, I mean, you could, if you stacked them in a flexible tube and could get some way to actually get them to feed.
No. What you could do is you could have a giant mechanism in a giant cylinder in the back, very similar to the Pyragon drum. You do something like that.
Yeah. You could do a huge Pyragon drum.
Right. It's a Pyragon drum, but instead it has like 30 tubes instead of 5. And each one
or the
is
tubes are 100 discs tall in a massive cylinder that rotates.
Gravity fed.
The real trick would be getting enough Vortex ammo to even feed that thing.
They still sell them on Amazon for less than the original retail price.
What?
It's not hard to get Vortex.
Everybody's clicking on Amazon.com right now.
What?
Thank you, Joel.
I've got a shortcut for that.
There.
Let's just go take a what?
Really?
At least there was the last time I looked, which was probably like a couple months ago, and they've had them for years.
Wow.
I bought some of the Zombie Strike ones not too long ago, like maybe a year or two ago.
Interesting.
And I believe they
Okay.
even still have those ones, if I'm not mistaken. Let me check.
Well, Gopher, I hope that's what you were looking for with that question. That is what you got. Nerf, Vortex, and
Oh yeah,
yeah.
You can get Vortex
there it
refills.
is.
They're still there.
An official refill is like $8. Well,
Yeah,
well
they
heard
used to
for-
retail for
there's a
$10 when
lot
they
of
were on store
knockoffs.
shelves. So
For a 20-pack, yeah.
Not bad. Okay, that's.
I
good
don't
to
know how they
That's good
still
to know.
have some this many years after, because VTX was
there's
what,
an
2018?
E-kind. There's a knockoff, an E-kind that's
The knockoffs. are pretty
$17
terrible.
for 60.
The only thing
Interesting.
that I've ever seen happen, because I've actually seen them in arena usage, the middle of the disc can fall out, but you can just reglue it back in.
Yeah, we're all used to that.
They don't fly quite as well, I don't believe.
Oh, okay.
They don't,
All right.
but it's good enough, you know? Anyways.
Fair.
I mean,
next
it's
Anyway.
Vortex.
probably.
Anyway.
It is Vortex. It is now time for us to play our game that we play every episode of the podcast.
Wait, we had one other
What-
question there, KT.
Where's
there-
the third question? What are you
Teacup had
talking
one.
about? For Cap?
Yes.
Where
yeah,
is
it was very early on, actually. So,
The heck?
it was a
Alright,
little bit
hang
further up.
All right,
She
you just
didn't-
read it. If you can see it, read it.
Well, I have to scroll up just a little bit for hers, but she said, and by the way, Captain, Teacup is actually my wife, so and she's one of our great supporters here. She said, I heard
Wonder
that
why
Captain
she's a
Xavier.
supporter.
Yeah, my wife is a supporter. She supports what I do. Anyway, she said, I heard that Captain Xavier
For
likes
better or for
books.
worse.
So
Yes.
my question for him is, if you could recommend one book to
That's right.
everyone listening, which one would it be?
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Well, there you
Saw
go.
that one coming.
There we go.
No, I mean, you're not wrong. Actually, she still hasn't read that book, and she has it. She just
Ooh,
hasn't
she's
actually
gotta.
read it yet.
She's
yeah.
gotta.
Teacup, read it. Read it.
Teacup. My
have it.
challenge to you is to finish the Hitchhiker series before my 12-year-old does.
Oh, there you go. I have a really fancy copy, the fancy copy with, gold filigree in it. And it is the book that I use when I officiate weddings.
Oh my
You
God.
officiate
Nice.
weddings on the Hitchhiker's Guide.
I have
Oh, that's so
officiated
good.
4 weddings on the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy at this point.
That is beautiful.
That's
That's
hilarious.
beautiful. I love that.
All right, KT.
Okay.
Sorry to cut you off.
Now it's time. for
Now
us to
you can play your game.
our game. What's that blaster? In which one member of the team picks a blaster, an official Nerf brand blaster, and reads the official description, slightly modified to obscure vital details, of that blaster to the rest of the team, and the squad tries to guess what blaster it is. If we can guess it without any hints beyond that description, everybody guessing gains 4 points. If we can't quite get it, we have 3 lifelines we can try. One of them is the original retail price of the blaster. Another is the original release year. And the other one is the original stock capacity. So those pieces of data get hidden if they're in the description along with the name. For each lifeline we use, we lose 1 point. The whole team that's guessing scores together. So it is up to each person picking to really try to fool the rest of the crew. Last episode, I managed to trick the team by picking a recent blaster that nobody was thinking about. And this time, it is Vile's turn to pick a blaster. And
Yes.
of course, to the listeners, if you are playing along, be sure to let us know how you're doing. How is your score? Were you able to guess this? If we aren't able to guess it correctly, we'll read off the rest of the lifelines so that you still have an opportunity at home to try to guess with us. Vile, are you ready to read? Is everybody ready to guess?
Do we
I'm
guess out
ready.
loud? How are we doing this?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
once he finishes reading it, we will just sort of discuss with
Oh,
each
okay.
other what because we come up with a unified answer of what we think the blaster is because we're scoring together.
Do we only get one guess?
Well, so
One
if
one
once
is
it's
that
kind
your
of a-
final answer type
Oh,
of
it's a
okay.
like lock
Okay.
it in final answer kind of thing.
Gotcha. All right.
And we just sort of discuss amongst ourselves like, do we want to start using lifelines or do we feel confident in this answer?
All right.
Yep, it's a team effort.
Let's
And
do
it, let me tell you, it usually either Jolt knows it in like 3 seconds or it's a team effort figuring it out. One or the other.
And
There's nothing in
sometimes-
between.
The team throws each other off. That's
Yes, that has happened quite a
that
few
has
times.
happened on many occasions now. So, are y'all ready then?
Yep.
I'm ready.
Yes.
Sure.
All right, I'm going to have to thank Axel Sorax for this one
Okay.
because this was
Axel
recommended
Sorax,
to
of
me
course,
by
a
Axel.
frequent contributor and also one of our Discord mods.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for all of your
Axel
work.
reached out to me and gave me this one, so thank you, Axel, for this. All right. Take aim and launch into action-packed fun with Nerf blank, blaster name. Go on fast-paced adventures and join with friends in competitive play. The blank, name of blaster, is a small in size but big in power. This compact blaster fires darts up to 90 feet, 27 meters. Load blank number of ammo, darts into the front of the blaster. Pull the handle down, then pull the trigger to fire one dart. The Nerf blank name of blaster comes with blank number of ammo, foam darts. That is it.
Triad EX3.
Okay, hold up. That does match all the details that we have, right? We have a pull
Yeah.
down to prime. We have dart. We do know that whatever the ammo type is, it is a dart.
Yeah, because otherwise I was gonna guess it was like the cross bolt or whatever it is, because he said pull down the handle, and I was thinking of the old Zombie Strike crossbow. But like,
I mean, okay,
The
hold on.
Triad had above average power compared to the Jolt.
But would they
I
have
remember that
advertised
being a
it that
thing.
way? Would they have
I
advertised
believe
it
they
that way?
did. I remember seeing this back when I first got into the hobby because, for those who don't know, the Triad was actually my first Nerf blaster. I got one at a garage sale. And I remember seeing them advertising it as being powerful for its size. So that's my final guess.
did it mention it was smart AR anywhere though? Because usually they shouted that out.
Yeah, I mean, it says fire one. I will.
We've been tricked before.
They did say fire one dart, and often that's an indicator that the blaster looks like it could fire more than one at a time.
That's
Because they're trying to
true.
clarify. We bumped into that before.
Do we
Where
want
they're trying to clarify that it
ammo
doesn't shotgun.
capacity?
Nah. Just trust me on this one, I swear.
There was a bit in there that had me thinking it was part of the dart tag line.
Yeah, that was my first instinct, 'cause
competitive-
it talked competitive
When
play.
they said competitive play.
True.
Yeah.
They don't usually use that language and stuff.
Then again, none of the dart tag blasters were exactly known for their power.
No.
No, they weren't. At the same time, though, the dart tag, I guess, line when they released the stuff like the Swarmfire, that was a power upgrade over the previous ones, if I remember right.
So here's a question.
Technically, there is one dart tag blaster that does have a pull down handle, and that would be, what's that stupid thing called? It's the one that is literally a Jolt on the inside.
Dart tag primes down. Well, because that's my question, I guess, is if we were to ask for if we were trying to determine if it was a dart tag blaster or an elite blaster,
Stinger.
we could ask for the
There it
for
is.
the year.
Year.
Okay,
we-
let's go for
you.
year.
But
Let's go for year.
But if we were
Oh.
to ask for the capacity and it was 3, what else could it be other than the triad?
Yeah. I don't know. What do you think, Cap?
Because if
We were
if
two.
it was 1, it could be all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's the pulling down the handle does suggest that it's
It's a Jolt.
a handle prime, grip prime.
Yes. I'm not against taking a chance with triad. I do feel good about that, but I also know that we have jumped in on an answer like that and just
Yeah, I could be wrong.
I
Who
am-
knows?
I am
Been-
unconvinced by Triad because of the competitive play talk, but that doesn't necessarily mean.
I'm gonna say we go for like one of the lifelines. I'm
Sure.
Can we get the
let's
I'd
description?
like a little
re-
more security.
Can we get the description again, or do we only get it the once?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
No, we
I
can hear
do
it again.
Okay, so do it again. Take aim and launch into action-packed fun with the Nerf blank, name of blaster. Go on fast-paced adventures and join with friends in competitive play. The blank, name of blaster is a small in size but big in power. This compact blaster fires darts up to 90 feet, 27 meters. Load blank, number of ammo, darts into the front of the blaster. Pull the handle down, Then pull the trigger to fire 1 dart. The nerf, blank, name of blaster. Blaster comes with blank, number of ammo, foam darts.
Okay,
I'm actually
convinced-
still gonna say it is triad because 90 feet.
I'm more convinced that it's the triad. A, because it does say load multiple darts, fires 1 dart. So like we can
And it says 90
eliminate single.
feet. The dart
and-
tag thing would not shoot 90 feet. A
That is also
triad
true.
would.
The other thing is, I heard the competitive play 2 line as well, but it's also predicated by go on adventures, which I don't
Actually, now
think
that I
is
think
dart
about
tag
it,
language.
it would make sense for the Elite XD line because the XD line routinely mentioned 90 feet as the range over Elite, which was claiming 70 feet. And there was an Elite XD white and like blue triad.
Yeah, they
So it
made
could
that
be
version of the triad
Hmm.
for a very long time, even past when they stopped doing the Elite XD marketing.
Yeah.
That blaster
get-
was produced and
alright,
produced and
alright, I guess-
produced.
Triad it is then.
Well, what do you think, Cap?
What do you think?
I'm willing to
you
go along.
convinced?
I got nothing better. So
Watch me be wrong.
If
It'll be funny.
if we get this, you will be one of only a couple guests to get on the board with 4 points. Dart Sweep and Nate. Actually, it'll be an all World Foam Alliance leadership on the guest board because it was Dart Sweep and Nate when they were on. Got my weird Iron Man Jolt without any lifelines. So that would be kind of cool for World Foam Alliance to have domination on the guest board.
Okay, well, Triad it
Hold
is
on.
then.
I'm
Wait,
okay. Yes.
So I definitely think it's handle primed,
Yes.
but I think
Well, I mean, yeah.
given that the whole here's me. I don't know if this counts as metagaming. The fact that it was given to us from someone else suggests that it's something more obscure.
So
Then again, some of the worst and most
some of
troublesome
you know
descriptions
what?
are things like the Maverick.
Yeah,
is-
one of the hardest ones ever was the Maverick. You'd be surprised at how. So one of the things that we've learned in this game too is there are a lot of red herrings and errors in a lot of the descriptions.
Yeah.
That has been something that's thrown us quite a bit. I hear you though.
What would
I
be
hear
the
you,
red
though.
herring? There's
I would think the red herring would be the
mean,
competitive play aspect.
I think competitive is the red herring for sure.
I agree. I think they're just saying that it's
Yeah.
that's
They're just trying to make it sound good by saying that it's competitive.
Is there a more obscure version of the triad?
There is, but I don't. The trilogy, not the
what's the Rebel
shell-fed
triad?
one. Yeah, that
What's
thing
the-
that no one
what
ever
is it?
seems to have had. That is called the trilogy.
That's the one I keep getting. I keep wanting to call the what was the shell fed pump action one that took.
Trilogy. They're called the
yes.
same thing.
Are they both called the same thing? That's why I keep getting it.
They
wrong.
are.
Would,
But also
would
the Rebel trilogy,
Would it be the
I don't think I've
trilogy?
ever
'Cause
seen
honestly,
one.
I would feel like that one's more likely.
Rebel
not-
Rebel language is so different.
It is.
Yeah.
Like,
Rebel
It is.
language is very
I just
different.
feel
Also,
like
the
Go
Rebel
On Adventures
trilogy is
doesn't
so
sound like
obscure,
elite
like-
language, though.
No,
The Go On
yeah, the fast-paced adventures with friends.
That, I don't think I've ever heard that used in Elite.
Hmm.
That's
blasters.
true. Maybe
And I've
this,
looked through a lot of the listings
could
before in the
be
past.
Rebel. But do they ever use competitive language in Rebel?
I mean, Rebel was marketing to a different market, so they were really having to upsell. So it wouldn't surprise me if they used it there.
And it
like-
didn't have any of the bell, the bingle, the jangles or bangles or anything.
It didn't
weird.
have
was
any of the
just
theme stuff. It was
As
just,
far as I'm
white.
concerned, I'm not even convinced it exists, given I've never seen a photo of someone actually have one.
Okay.
I'm gonna.
Is there a lifeline that would distinguish between the trilogy?
release year?
Year.
2013, 2014 was the 2013, 2014 was the triad.
And then
So if
what
it
was
was
the
later-
trilogy?
If it was like 2015, 2016, it would be the trilogy.
Okay.
I think.
Do we? Well, I don't want to take away.
I want my points.
I'm just gonna.
I'm sold on
I think it's the trilogy.
What are you sold on?
I'm sold on it being one of the handle primed AR blasters, and I agree the trilogy has the triad has the power, but I don't think it's obscure enough for somebody trying to trick us up on this. So I'm leaning towards trilogy also.
Plus, the trilogy came out later, so the performance in air quotes cap they were claiming was more bold at that point compared to earlier years.
True.
I know the Elite XD line notoriously did that, but like, I don't know, trilogy just sounds more right to me.
Why don't we ask for release year?
Because Captain Xavier wants 4 points.
I want my points.
Yeah, he wants
that's why we
Okay.
All or nothing. Let's do it.
Okay, how
I say
about this?
trilogy.
You guys can guess trilogy, and if you guys are wrong and it is the triad, I get points.
No, doesn't work that way, Jolt.
Because
Doesn't
it's
work
just
that
like
way.
the adventure
Especially
thing
for
does
you.
not sound
It especially
elite
does
line.
not work for you, Jolt, with 33 points, 10 points over everyone else on the team.
It's just.
I really say we should take the release year.
I will say, were it not for the captain, we would take the release year lifeline.
I'm actually.
Because that would
I'm sold at
would
this
settle
point.
the question of these two.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna. Have
I
to
am
go for
prepared to
Captain.
go down in flames if I'm wrong.
Whatever. Fine. We'll put all the poker chips on trilogy.
All right. Okay,
is that-
I'll go with it. I'll
Is
go
that
with
all
it.
final answer then?
That's
the
fine.
Rebel
Is everybody
trilogy?
in?
Yeah.
Rebel
yeah,
trilogy,
just-
final answer.
Jolt, you'd have been the only one here who would have lost.
Yes!
It is the Nerf Rebel trilogy.
Dang.
KT, you could have actually had Jolt lose points for the first time that you saved him.
I'm not breaking the rules just to do that.
So if it wasn't for Captain Xavier understanding that somebody would try to go for something obscure, thank you, Axel, for that one.
That is a
Yeah,
very
because
good one.
I was gonna say the competitive play and it'd go on adventures with friends sounds off for the elite line.
And yes, if you look at the terminology on the Rebel line, when a big thing about it was being with friends, they heavily did a lot of stuff with their stuff about friends going in on missions, going on adventures. That was a really big part of the Rebel line. So that would have been your sort of red herring.
I still say this blaster
That was a
doesn't
good
actually
catch.
exist.
It says if you
I
actually
swear,
look at the
look it
Nerf
on
wiki, it
Google
does say-
Images.
It says it is discontinued. Now, remember, you said the same thing about a particular blaster. We even have an emote of it saying, we don't think this exists. And there was one random image that popped up of it.
True, it may be
there
like
was-
that.
There were a couple of blasters in the Rebel line that were like
So,
released for a
Jolt-
week and never
Joel,
never
you
seen
say
again.
that, but the Rebel trilogy, the first thing that pops up is Toy Fair coverage of it.
Mhm.
With someone
Yeah,
having
but
it
have
in
you
hand.
ever seen a picture outside of Toy Fair that isn't a
I've
freaking
seen
render?
a singular one on like Goodwill Outlet, I think, or not Goodwill Outlet, but shopgoodwill.com before.
Okay,
Well,
so it's
it-
just
it
incredibly,
exists.
incredibly rare.
Yeah.
It exists enough for it to leave us at a score of 28 for me, 25 for Vile, 37 for Jolt, 34 for Grim. And on the guest leaderboard, we've got American Foam with 2, Not Enough Nerf with 3, and then Dart Sweep, Nate, and Captain Xavier all at 4 points. That is a World Foam Alliance sweep on the guest leaderboard so far. So congratulations
Hurrah!
on
And you got
whoever figured
all
out.
the
I think
points. All the
Yeah.
points because of Captain Xavier saying, I want my points.
Yep.
I want my
And-
points.
And knowing that it's an obscure one was funny enough. That was, I just
Yeah.
needed
See,
to see
it's a
that.
good,
Good.
thing that somebody else knew what the name was because I never would have thought of the name.
See, hey, I at least give
knew
points
there
to
was
knowing the
one.
thing
it's a
existed.
team effort. That's the thing. It takes
like-
the whole team. It
like-
always takes the whole team to figure these things out.
Yeah, good
If
stuff.
Jolt got us started by going with
With the triad,
The triad.
I
that
wouldn't
made
have
sense.
thought
But
of
it's like
anything in that area.
that led us where we needed to get to.
I don't think I would have gotten to triad even. I would have gone. I was still thinking dart tag because of the competitive.
Yeah,
but
same.
There was no handle primed dart tag blaster that I could think of.
Yeah, there was the Stinger. It came in a couple
No,
of
Stinger
different
was part of-
colors.
Stinger
No,
was part
no,
of
it was
the-
Dart Tag.
It was?
No,
There was another
I thought it
Stinger.
was-
They reused the
I thought
name.
It was the cheap line, right?
Yeah, no. Stinger
Oh.
was Alpha
They
Strike.
reused the name.
Oh, they had a Stinger. Okay, I just looked it up. There is one. There's a
What?
singular one. They clipped plastic over it
Yeah, it's
look
literally a
different than the
Jolt on the
Yeah,
inside. It's that one that has
Yeah,
like a
but that's
gray
part
Jolt.
of the Alpha Strike line, isn't it?
No, there's
No,
also
no.
a dart tag
one.
version from
It's
2013.
a
from
really
the-
obscure
From like
blaster.
2005 dart tag version?
2013.
I think it was actually
Well, then that's
the
not
last
the dart tag I was thinking.
blaster.
I was thinking the old dart tag.
Yeah, it was the
Velcro
final dart tag blaster, if I'm
Velcro
not
tip
mistaken.
dart tag.
If you just
Okay,
look up the
okay.
word stinger, there's actually like 6. There's the Raven Stinger, there's the Alpha Strike Stinger, there's the Dart Tag Stinger, Airjet. There was an Airjet.
There was an
Power
Airjet.
Stinger.
That is one of the rarest blasters I have on my wall.
Yeah.
Is the Airjet Stinger.
Yeah, there's a lot of stingers. So
And my kingdom for
just-
a Slingfire DX400.
Oh god.
okay.
Oh no, not the sling fire.
You said the Airjet Stinger is rare?
At least I've only ever seen one that I found on eBay.
Okay. I found one at a thrift store in a bag filled with a bunch of things, and I was like, I had no idea it was that rare.
Yeah, no, I only got mine because somebody sent me a link to an eBay auction. Going, hey,
Yeah.
do you need this one? You're like, dear sweet Jesus, yes, buy it now, buy it now.
Okay, fair.
So moving forward today, after that grand success,
Hurrah.
I want to take a moment to address you more as Chaylo and less as
Oh, dear.
Captain Xavier, and ask you sort of about the about the history of the Captain Xavier character. And I know that you've explained some of these things, but getting to do it in conversation, I think, is really fun. I if I remember correctly, it's based in some like LARP stuff you were doing before you got into Nerf, and it's sort of evolved in this way to being this persona. And I'd just love to hear about the history behind it.
Yeah.
And sort of how it became what it is now.
So I first started using the name Xavier in my French class in high school. We had to pick a traditional French name, and that was the name we used when we were in class. And eventually we were only allowed to speak French and only allowed to refer to each other by the name. And I chose the name Xavier, which in French is Xavier. And so that's where I got into that. And then when I got into medieval recreation, we had to create a character. And since I was the mascot of my high school, which was the Prairie Pirates, so I already had a pirate outfit. So when I went into the medieval recreation, I kind of went as this. I decided to combine the mascot and the Xavier and become this French privateer named Captain Xavier, or Captain Xavier, as it would have been.
Yeah.
And then when I got into Nerf through Humans vs. Zombies, we were playing NPCs. They didn't start playing HVZ at the University of Idaho, where I went to college, until my last semester, and the game had already started before I found out that it existed, so I was too late to be able to get in as a player because I was no longer a student. But we were able to come back as NPCs, because by this point, the Captain Xavier now had an actual company of mercenaries from the medieval recreation stuff. Fairly professional. We'd been fighting alongside each other for years. We were, very structured. We fought in kind of a Roman shield wall style formation, which takes a lot of discipline, and so we had all that military discipline stuff and squad tactics and an NCO core and all of that already. And so we just shifted that over to modern urban combat when we started doing the HVZ stuff. I had my Sergeant Major Kyle. Had deployed both Iraq and Afghanistan. He was in the National Guard. He taught us a lot of things. And we hadn't actually gotten to the point of being an actual mercenary company yet, I don't think. Timeline is a little wibbly. But eventually we did incorporate as a private security company. We had guys who were armored car drivers and armored car guards, bouncers.
So there's like pretty direct lineage from your high school French class character to the actual company.
It all just kind of carried over. And when I started doing the HVZ stuff, we were again playing professional mercenaries. That was what they had us play, because we were kind of a mix between zombies and humans, in that we had blasters and we hunted zombies. But if a zombie tagged us, rather than turning into a zombie, we just respawned as NPC humans again. Which the zombies liked, because we'd stand and give them a straight fight, because we didn't have to worry about getting turned. So we'd give them a good fight, which is way more fun than the humans just running to the nearest building to escape. But if they did manage to tag us, which they always did, because we'd fight until we ran out of ammo and die, we didn't care. We were, NPCs. The zombies had to get a tag. These were for like the week-long HVZs on college campuses. the zombies had to get a tag every 48 hours or they would starve and would be out of the game. And tagging one of us counted as getting a tag.
Oh.
So we were giving feeds to the zombies so they didn't starve out and have to quit playing. We were protecting the humans, so the humans liked us.
And so you had a lot of combat as a result.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we were always in massive firefights, and all the zombies would come and eventually swarm us, and we'd run out of ammo. And it was great for PR because people love seeing the guys in the full black tack getting, eventually, circling up and firing in all directions until we ran out of ammo and just got swarmed by a horde. It looks great. The zombies loved it. The human players got to escape, and they enjoyed it, and so it worked out for everybody. But they started getting some of the games that we played at the university, or the Washington State University, WSU, they got a little more LARP-like, and they actually had NPC characters with names and backstories, and so we ended up having names and backstories, and I just chose to stick with Captain Xavier because it's what I knew. It's what I'd already been doing. And so when I started a YouTube channel, I just stuck with Captain Xavier. Yeah. There were already more people in the world that knew me as Captain Xavier than knew me as Chaylo, and so I was just used to it. I already had the regalia, I already had the patches, I already had the name tags. It was just...
Yeah, I was going to say, at that point, the character's already pretty developed, right? Like, you've had so much time as this character.
Yeah, it also was the character that I used at Afterworlds, because I first went to Afterworlds as a player rather than an NPC, and I chose to simply play the Captain Xavier that I'd played at WSU, where WSU had a zombie outbreak, they failed containment, they ended up having to nuke the site in order to keep it from spreading everywhere. A whole bunch of the humans managed to get into safety into a bunker, and so it was actually a human victory that last game. But Captain Xavier had to sacrifice himself, so he got nuked, somehow lived through it, because of experimentation that the evil corporation had done on him, so they were basically immortal. But he got his arms blown off and had to get robot arms. So I was playing that same Captain Xavier at Afterworlds, and then I started the YouTube channel, and that decided I'm going to stick with it.
So you almost sort of have like a Link from Legend of Zelda situation going on here.
Yeah,
with like different incarnations, different stories.
Pop up
exactly.
in
People have asked
places.
about that. Are all these Captain Xaviers from all these different systems related? And in some cases, it's the same Captain Xavier. And others,
I do that in D&D too. I have like a family lineage. I have never not played a character who wasn't part of the same ever ongoing family line with like lore and other stuff. It's fun.
I have a very long family tree of dwarven clerics that were always the son of the previous dwarven cleric.
And
I eventually got to play a prehistoric campaign that was set in like the caveman era, and I got to play the first of that line, which was pretty cool.
That before. I remember my friend in my current campaign, when it looked like he may have ended up dying. He said if he died, his character Etzel, he was going to have his twin brother come to avenge him, named Pretzel.
Excellent. We had one where I was playing the son of one of my dwarven clerics, and someone else decided to play the daughter of that dwarven cleric. So we had the brother-sister rivalry, which was hilarious because I became a cleric, which is what Dad wanted. She became a fighter, which is what Mom wanted, and so, there was all kind of banter with there. At one point, she got hit with a death spell and failed the save by 1 and just keeled over dead. But she'd forgotten that she was a dwarf, and you get a +2 on your saves. So my character stuck his head out from the door in the next room where he was fighting and going, "Sis! Shrug it off! This is why Dad never loved you. You're such a drama queen."
Oh my God. So when you started the YouTube channel, the most of the channel is to varying degrees like in character. Was that a conscious decision, or was that just sort of a natural extension of what
very
you've
much
been doing?
Very much a conscious decision, because at one point in my past I failed to strictly delineate Chaylo from Captain Xavier, and it caused a lot of problems in my personal life. Luckily I was finally able to separate it, and now Captain Xavier is very much a character that I play. When people ask me, if they meet me at events and I'm just there in jeans and a t-shirt or whatever, and they're like, "Dude, should I call you Captain?" They're like, "I'm only Captain Xavier when I'm wearing a black hat." So if if I'm wearing my bandana and I'm in gear and I'm at an event and I'm leading troops on the field, then I am Captain Xavier. Otherwise, I'm Chaylo.
Who's the man with hat now, huh?
That helps me a great deal in keeping it separated. And some of the things, when I'm doing reviews, it's less so, but a lot of stuff, I do it in character because it's fun. You should have a character on YouTube. or at least a lot of
It's-
people do. I know.
I think that's one of the things too,
even
where
I
it's
have
like
one.
I think if you're making videos online, I bump into this actually. You know where I really bump into this is in I'm a musician, and in my bands, I'm always like, hey, group of musicians, like we're on stage, we're under lights, we're performing for people. We should like talk about what we're wearing, and we should like try to like make sure that we have sort of a unified presentation.
Yeah.
And rock musicians especially tend to be like, well, I don't want to be fake. And it's like you're on stage. Like if you're not being a little bit fake, you're not doing the show. Like you're not
putting on a very
portraying
good
the
show.
message correctly.
Yeah. You don't have to be Kiss all out, with face paint and all
Right.
that, but put
like,
in some effort.
Pay attention. Well, and so I think when we're YouTubing, even if it's not as overt as Captain Xavier is, and I think that's part of why your channel has been as successful it is just you're very good at it. And you carry this character so clearly, but I think it's useful for all of us to recognize that we are all playing a character. That character may just be an amplification of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But being conscious of that, I think it draws people. It makes the content more engaging and more interesting. And I think in a context like the stuff that you create, I think it actually helps people learn. I point people to your breakdown videos of blasters all the time. It's saved so many people in the things but I think
the most regular comments I get are people on my disassembly and reassembly videos saying thank you because you saved my blaster.
Dude, I cannot believe that you did one for the Ravonix 360.
Somebody said I wouldn't,
balls.
so I did. Like,
I've
do the
used
Ravonix,
that
you
guide.
just wait.
Yeah.
I had to repair mine because the pump grip was snapped,
I actually still
and I
use
used
them
that to
sometimes as a
relubricate
refresher.
the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I need to get back into doing those because I don't remember why I ended up. It was time schedule, and then I never got back to them. But they're very time consuming and tedious to edit.
Yes.
But again, they're the ones that get the most positive comments.
Well,
And
it's
that was what my channel was always about. Early on, it was all about how to mod, teaching how to mod, and that's of course why it took Hasbro so long to acknowledge my existence because.
Well, yeah, they don't want that. Well, and
They
it's
don't
such.
want that.
I learned a lot from your channel in my earliest days of modding, like the basics, things like spring upgrades and things like that.
Yeah. Well, and you're creating such a hopefully permanent record of all of this. I always thought this about Coop's channel when he was active, where it's like he sort of almost accidentally created one of the most complete records of firing footage of stock blasters.
Yes.
Because
He
had such
did.
he had such a consistent style. You know, they're all the videos are comparable, and you can put them all next to each other and see just like you could theoretically edit together like here's every blaster nerf released in this year all being shot at the same target.
Yeah.
And in a similar way, I think you've created this library and continue to create this library of like here is breakdown and reassembly of all these commonly modded blasters, and I think that's super valuable to a community like ours. Ones
that I never got around to. They were the next ones I was going to do. Were going to be the Hades and the Artemis.
Yeah,
because those are complicated ones to get back together.
Yeah, the amount of times I've seen someone jam and lock theirs up, and then it's just like they just set it aside because they're like, I don't want to open.
I don't want to try to open.
My Artemis never even worked properly out of the box. It had a faulty double prime lock, and it would just seize up randomly.
My first stream actually on Twitch. If you didn't know, I stream mods on Twitch primarily for Nerf modding. My first one to no one was me modding an Artemis and getting into it, modding it, and putting it all back together. And it was the most crude looking thing I ever looked back on. And unfortunately, the footage is gone because they don't hold on to it like YouTube would.
You have to store it.
You have to store it, store it and upload it. And I don't really do that. And I've been meaning to, and I always remember that. And I'm like, I should make a mod guide about how this thing, taking it apart and putting it back together. Because I found like a really easy way to get the priming grips apart and stuff. And
please tell me that later. So I hate that priming grip.
It is a challenge, but yeah, I'd have to get back into it because it's been a while. But at the time, I was taking them. I had taken apart like 2 or 3 of them, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I figured this out. You just do this and do this." And I even made it where it was like easy to clip them off and on afterwards. But the thing is that kind of like Chaylo is saying, sometimes setting up for modding videos is even hard because there's a lot you got to do, and it's time consuming, and the mod itself takes time, and then you got to make sure you're leaving in the parts you got to do.
Right.
I might have a video that I'm still
I
needing
straight
to
up
do.
record at a friend's house, so I have to like have go with friends like 20 minutes out of town to go up to my friend's place because their place is just nicer for recording. They have lots of like studio lights they let me use, and we have a field back in the backyard where I can set up targets and other stuff with our backyard Nerf arena and other stuff. But it's just a process to set that stuff up, you know.
Well, and modding videos specifically, I've discovered this too, are so challenging because you're trying to document this process that's like a very human process, and it's a thing that isn't. Nobody else who does the same mod you're showing them is going to have the exact same experience. So what you're really trying to do is like prepare them for all the eventualities of opening this thing up and all the things that could happen.
Yeah.
And maybe those things don't happen and you have to fake them and show them on video, or maybe it happens in a way that it doesn't record well, and then you have to like take a picture of it later and like edit it in, and it's like
I mean,
it gets very complicated.
Video was originally gonna be a mod video where I actually time lapse and then show the steps of me modding my first Strife, but we lost the footage during the recording.
Oh no.
And then when my friend re-recorded me talking about it, he accidentally recorded it in vertical. I don't speak with this person anymore at the time, but it's like, and then the first take got corrupted, so then we had to do it again.
Well, you know, honestly, I would never recommend to anybody that you do a video of your first one of anything.
Yeah.
This is why it took me like a year to do the Retalicon guide. I did like 9 million Retalicons to make sure I had it down pat.
Exactly.
I've had a lot of people ask me, how do you always get it right the first try? And you're like, like, this is a 15-minute video. I had 3 hours of footage.
Yeah.
There is 2 hours and 45 minutes of me making mistakes that didn't make the cut.
And I did it 5 times before this one.
My original concept for doing it as the first one, it wasn't intended to be a guide. It was kind of like modder's first attempt
just your
at simple
storytelling.
Mod.
Storytelling.
The whole pitch was that it was like midnight, and we were going to do this into the wee hours of the morning and see how like tired and random shenanigans happen.
How badly can we miss this?
Well, that's when you start making.
Yeah, I mean, technically at one point a soldering iron dropped on the Strife shell itself, and so there's a little indentation on it still to this day that I use, and it also landed on my friend's pants at one point. So he has he had, for the longest time in his nerfing pants, a hole where the soldering iron fell and narrowly missed his leg.
Amazing.
Because I think it was like 5 a.m, no sleep.
So one last thing on this before we move on. The Captain Xavier in... talking about this multiverse of Captain Xaviers and the lineage of them. The Captain Xavier on YouTube, is this the same one maybe that you meet at, that people might meet at major events, or is that
the one on YouTube is kind of the persona that I put on when I go to events, because I know I'm going to have, you know, dozens of people that have watched my channel and are kind of expecting me to be that person, and so at like when I go to the cons or, you know, the foam con or something like that, I more or less kind of Captain Xavier it up. And obviously when I'm actually in the field, when I'm actually like on the field leading troops at like UMBC or Mall Madness, the Xavier you're seeing there is a little bit more like the Xavier from the medieval recreation days of the commander on the field of battle. And that's a whole different mindset that you get into. Where you're barking orders and doing what you have to do. Whereas the Captain Xavier that you'll meet, you know, off the field or at a foam con or something, that's more of the goofy Captain Xavier that you see on YouTube, because that's more personable and more friendly, as opposed to me being the drill sergeant veteran yelling at you type character.
It's just more palatable for the situation. Sense.
And it's Nerf, so it should be silly. So I mean,
should be silly.
I've leaned more and more into being a little bit sillier on my channel, just because I am in general a fairly silly person, and it's again makes for better YouTube content when I'm you know yelling
Silliness
at trains and telling blasters how very dare you, or you know flinging them and saying I'm not impressed. All of the catch lines.
Does Chaylo ever just want to go? Is it Chaylo or Chaylo?
Chaylo. It's a hard CH. But I tell people not to worry about it. I had a grandmother who went to her grave having never once pronounced my name correctly, so...
Oh, goodness. Does Chaylo ever just want to go Nerf?
Yeah, and I do occasionally get to. Like at the events that I host at my place, There, I'm pretty much entirely Chaylo because it's all friends. It's only a handful of people that I've invited, and I'm not leading a squad at an HVZ.
Right.
We're just playing pickup battles
You're
in
just
my
hanging out.
arena. That's mostly just me having fun. And
cool.
at some of the Borst Wars, I also try to avoid Captain Xaviering too much.
Yeah.
Because if I actually do that, like in at a public casual nerf war, if I actually organize my team, it will be such a lopsided waffle stomp. Nobody actually ends up having any fun. Like one of the games we play is Carpe, where you're trying to gather as many balls from buckets that are in the middle of the field and get them to your bucket at your side of the field. The last time I actually truly organized a team for that, we ended up beating the enemy team 105-5.
Oh my god.
And that wasn't fun. That genuinely wasn't really fun for anybody because we just held the position. They could never get close to the buckets. They were just having to constantly respawn, and it was us just shooting fish in a barrel and increasingly dejected fish in a barrel. And that's not fun.
Yeah, I got to admit, at Maryland Mayhem at 11th hour, when we were doing
Titan Ball,
man, I was on the team that first of all, the teams were really misbalanced. There were like all the flywheelers were on one side, but also all of the
guys from the Pacific Northwest.
Yes, we're all
of us were
side.
on the same team. So we had Luke and Brett pushing offense, and they are amazing Titan Ball players
incredible.
on offense. And we had nothing but crew on defense. Ain't nobody getting through that.
Yeah, and so it was just like on the other side, which I was with my kid. It was just kind of like, if the first push, we get about third away across the field, and then it just goes back and back and back, and we like couldn't get out of the corner.
Yeah. No, we talked about that afterwards. Like, well, I mean, they kind of noticed it going, uh-oh. Well, no, that was the thing. The reason they didn't say anything was that the crew that was doing defense didn't realize Brett and Luke were on their team doing offense. And when they found out, they all felt bad. And like, oh, no wonder it was so lopsided. Because they didn't realize how lopsided it was because they were only pushing defense. They didn't realize the offense was just, murking the other side. We try to balance things better up here. And we've gotten to the point sometimes where we balance too well and neither side can win and it just turns into a stalemate.
Yeah.
So we started adding time limits.
Okay, we are way over time, which is fine because
who could have predicted this?
This has been such an incredible conversation. I have one other news thing that I want to chat about, and I'm actually speaking of organization. I'm curious what your thoughts on this are. The one news story that I want to chat about briefly before we close out here is this situation with Dart Zone's trademark application for the term blaster tag.
Yeah.
We've covered it a few times as this has been evolving. Of course, the backstory on this with Jangular attempting to trademark it and then abandoning his own application because it seemed like it wasn't trademarkable. But then, of course, Dart Zone has a lawyer.
A lot more lawyers, yeah.
The lawyer's name is on the paperwork, and I've explicitly not been using it on the news show because I don't want people calling this law office unnecessarily. But they abandoned, so they got to the point where, past the point Jangular got to, where it was clear that it was going to be approved. And it went up for opposition, and there was a lot of outcry in the foam flinging community, but no concrete action. Nobody coughed up the money to do it, partly because it was like, yeah, you cough up the $600 and then you have to hire a lawyer and then you have to do this and you have to do this. And who's doing it? Who has the money to do that?
Yeah.
But they abandoned it. And the thing that I think is really, really interesting is they didn't just stop responding to the trademark office. Their lawyer sent a notice of abandonment. It was an active choice to abandon the trademark. And we've had communication with Primetime Corporate before for this story, but they didn't respond in time for comment on this. I'd still love to hear from them, but we're sort of left to speculate on what exactly happened. Did they respond to how the hobby was reacting to it, do we think? Or was it... Is something
My
else
closest bet
going
is
on?
it wasn't any one person. I'm assuming, because they do have people who show up to community events, they probably just encountered enough people over time who are constantly like, I don't buy Dart Zone anymore because they tried copywriting my blaster tag type of thing, to where it was just kind of, this is going to have long lasting effects on community animosity.
Maybe. I mean, there were, we made content about it. Jangular made content about it. Others have mentioned it. Beret did.
I think it would have to have been an employee on the inside probably gauging that it wasn't going to be good long term, probably.
I would be willing to bet good money I know exactly who was responsible for them doing that, but it's not my story to tell.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I agree. It was. I mean, if we wanted to, to be truly cynical, we could say that this was all a PR ploy. They never planned to actually do it. They just said they were going to do it so that we would get upset, and then when they abandoned it, it would make them look good. That, see, we have bowed to the hobby. You were right. We shouldn't, and aren't we wonderful? I don't think that's the case because Dart Zone seems to be too good of a company for that. They've responded so well to community stuff. I think they thought it was a good idea. And then, because of the public outcry, they changed their mind.
I sincerely hope that's like a happy ending.
I sincerely
meanwhile,
hope
excuse me, I'm just gonna put on my tinfoil hat for the crazy theory. Someone at Hasbro got to them, threatened them, because they want to trademark it down in the future.
Oh, we have tinfoil hat. Jolt has appeared on the podcast.
There we go, tinfoil hat. But yeah, all we can do is speculate unless they actually make a statement, and even then, it might be a covering their butts PR statement. Right. I definitely think they did the right thing by canceling. I think it would have harmed them if they had, because Blaster Tag Association has existed for years.
Yes.
Though they did say that they weren't ever going to go after anybody for using it, they just wanted to put it on the books. You're like,
well, but as we've talked about on our show, they can say that, but like, then what happens if leadership changes at prime time? The new person doesn't have the same idea. If the other thing about trademarks is, if you don't defend them when they are used by someone else, you can lose them.
Yeah.
So they can say that they won't defend the trademark, but then they will lose the trademark. So what would be the point of not defending the trademark? So it was always a little bit fuzzy. Maybe they realized that just wasn't going to pan out in that way. So the next step is, now that we've gone through this with Dart Zone, does that tarnish the term blaster tag? Does it make sense for us to try to use it more, to stake more of a claim on it?
I mean, should we be looking wider? For a long time now.
Yeah,
I think I'll stick with it.
I know there was a debate over what should we call the competitive side of our hobby, and I know Dartsoft came up, which I never liked.
For a minute I was using Dartsoft, but it just doesn't make as much sense. Like, sure, it's catchy, but
I never liked it. I like Blaster Tag because we encourage people to refer to them as blasters.
Yes, that's very true. There was a conversation about this. I remember when I first started my channel, I picked Foam Sport because that was another option that was being considered, and I liked that one a lot, and alliteration.
That one also branches into Melee more as well.
Yes,
which is one of the reasons they went with the Foam World Foam Alliance instead of World Blaster Alliance. They wanted to include the LARPers. They wanted to
excuse me. This is hyper erasure.
I'm always here for hyper erasure, Jolt. We can erase it as much as we want. Yeah, I mean, that's Foam News Collective. That's why we went that way too. It feels more inclusive of everything. Yeah, but
because Nerf is used in a lot of LARPs that also do
we're
foam.
Just all hating on hyper now, aren't we?
Hey, you know what? Ultra is made of foam. You should be happy.
Foam forever.
I see. Well,
yeah, I mean, like, to what degree does our hobby need a unified name?
That is a big question. That's one of the things that, I mean, I've thought about it, and like with the auxiliary, there was kind of a push to try to unify things to a degree, and we eventually realized we are not the people to be doing this. And I'm hoping the World Foam Alliance, so far it seems to be working well, and their goals is something that has been tried before, is that there is no central authority within our hobby, and there shouldn't be, because our hobby is too varied for that to ever make sense.
Yeah.
Because the competitive stuff, the HVZ stuff, the casual wars, the kids playing with Jolts in their living room, the LARP world, those are all very, very different hobbies. They intersect. Yeah. They're all part of the same overarching thing of hobbies involving weapons that use foam or rubber or what have you. But they're very, very different, and things that would be acceptable in one are absolutely unacceptable in another, and things that would be allowed one place absolutely shouldn't under any circumstances be allowed somewhere else. And
Right.
that the lines get very weird and fuzzy and blurry, and so trying to have a single unified entity really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And so trying to have a standardized, even if it's for competitive, trying to truly standardize it is probably never going to work, because not everyone has access to a 125 by 125 field. Not everyone has access to electronic scoring systems. Some people don't want to play with Blaster Tag Association rules. They want to play with Waffle Spark rules, or they want to play with Maryland Mayhem flag push rules, or what have you.
Speed dart.
Yeah,
Well, and
speed
there's
And
dart.
some people don't even want to
Atomic
have rules at
Rush.
all, and they just want to shoot each other.
Yeah, some people don't want to do competitive stuff, but there's enough variety within the competitive world that even trying to standardize that is going to be very difficult, and may not be something that we should ever even be trying to do. But if we want to get bigger, there does need to be a certain level of organization.
Yeah.
There at least needs to be more collaboration.
I definitely feel like if there was ever a question that was probably a result of events that have happened this year, it's definitely how, when, and what would it look like be the hobby itself becoming more organized be. Like I know with the CPSC, the question came up, should Foam News Collective join the board to help get like regulations made for the hobby? Should the Dart Zone go through with their patent, or how will that affect the hobby?
Yeah.
Should events become more organized? The World Foam Alliance, a bunch of just
What is
different things.
What is Nerf ball going to mean to our hobby?
Well, and it's interesting because I do think that with organizations like the World Foam Alliance and Dart Sweep, the website, not the
Dart
person,
Sweep.io, yeah.
dartsweep.io, and our show, which is starting. I think that we're doing a pretty good job disseminating information, trying to make sure people know about things, and then to have centralized places where clubs can sort of organize. I think we're headed that way. It feels good where we're at right now. I'm excited for the World Foam Alliance site to launch fully.
Yeah, me too.
But time will tell. We can kind of keep working with that goal in mind. And then maybe we don't need just a unified name, and people can kind of choose whatever fits best for their, some clubs might be more comfortable calling themselves a blaster tag club if they are less melee focused and more PvP sort of tagging sport focused and less objective focused maybe, or they may prefer to have a foam name or like a some other kind of name that more reflects like their angle and their bent in the community.
Yeah, one of the potential downsides to unifying is there's just not enough time to do it all.
Yeah.
If you have to pick, do I want to do? I mean, you're gonna have to choose. Do I want to do competitive? And which style of competitive do I want to do? Because if I'm going to Rag, I need to practice BTA style. If I'm going to Mayhem, I need to practice Mayhem style. If I'm going to End War, I need to do End War style. If I'm getting into Nerf ball, I got to do Nerf ball style. It's like trying to play basketball, soccer, football, and baseball all at the same time.
Right.
You pretty much have to pick one if you want to get really good at it.
That's a really
kind of the
good
same
point.
with,
I think a lot of people think about competitive Nerf as being like one sport, and it's really like
It isn't
It's
yet.
a cloud of sports.
It's
a
kind of
cloud
almost like
sports
looking
that
at
are-
it like martial arts or like sword combat, because you have like
Yeah.
HEMA, fencing, you have kendo, or like you have karate, jujitsu, other stuff.
Right.
They're all similar, but nowhere near close to like.
Well, and
Yeah.
from the outside, everybody's like, "Oh, karate."
Yeah, you do martial arts. Oh,
Yeah.
you're a fencer. Yeah. And I think as it grows more and more, choices are going to have to be made of, okay, which one do we want to unify and do a single one? Do we want to have a standard? If we want to have major leagues that have, well-known teams that go to multiple events around the country over the course of a year, do we need to unify? Or do we very specifically want to not unify? And to have that variety of, okay, you go to Rag, we're playing this game, but when you go to Mayhem, it's this game.
I like the variety, personally.
I like the variety, too. One of the things the World Foam Alliance considered, because they want to do tournaments, they want to host big tournaments, is every round of the tournament is a different game style.
I love that idea. That sounds like
the
fun.
first round of the elimination, we're playing BTA style. The second round of the tournament, we're doing Spark. The next one, we're doing Ion Rush. So that all the different varieties and all of you always get the chance to play your standard game, your strength.
It's like a triathlon.
It is very important that the final round be played with offals.
Yeah, there you go. That was actually one thing we considered. Yeah, playing games where we level the playing field and everyone is using the same blaster.
Awful. I'm going to throw this out there. Awfals as tiebreakers.
Yeah, or like something
Offals is just the best game mode in general, though.
Yeah, or something like Bucket of Pistols, where everyone's using
long shot front guns.
Yeah, there you go. All broken Mavericks.
Okay. Before we get too far into speculative fun, because speculative fun is how we end the show. So, I have my ending question for the podcast today, which, with the possibility of a Mega Lynx and a Mega XL Ranger on the horizon, what current blaster? And I'm thinking in the realm primarily of like competitive community blasters, but I'm open to off-the-shelf blasters or other things. What current blaster would be your top pick for a version that shoots larger ammo, whether it's Mega or Mega XL? What current blaster would you love to see upsized?
I want a Mega XL FDL3.
Oh, that would be sick.
How is the Mega XL
heavy holy bolter? That's what I want.
How is the Mega XL magazine situation going on? I haven't.
Size of your chest.
Have been trying.
There are people that are trying. Actually, I get daily pings from a guy who's developing a Mega XL sniper that'll hit like 125 feet and is just terrifying. And I love it. Apparently, it'll shotgun 4 Mega XL like 90 feet. You're like, where am I gonna use this? I don't care. I need one in my life.
Sounds like something that would be banned from every event.
Yeah,
for just pure deadliness.
Obviously that's the ridiculous answer. I wouldn't mind like a Mega FDL3, something on that level. I mean, we have the what's the full auto Mega blaster they came out with?
Mastodon.
It was magazine fed.
Oh, Moto Strike. It wasn't full auto.
Semi.
Was it semi-auto? The Moto Strike.
Yeah, it was semi.
Yeah, I would like a
Strike.
hobby grade Moto Strike. I'd like a.
That would be
so.
Cool.
I think I've pitched this one multiple times,
and
so I would want something akin to an upscaled Spring Thunder, but I'd want it to take 40 max shells and shoot Mega XL or Mega, and I want it to look like the Halo shotgun, so it has like life-sized Halo shells that it feeds, taking the 40 max stuff.
Okay, I mean
that would
so it's like
just sizing that up so that you have more variety of ammo that's available that'll fit in.
I like that. A shell ejecting, a pump action shell ejecting blaster that takes shells large enough to fire Mega XL. Yeah.
Wasn't the Sobek supposed to be that, or at least closer
it's still
to
in
that?
development hell.
Yeah, the Sobek was supposed to fire. I know that one of the ammo types was supposed to be Nitron cars with the wheels removed. There was going to be a shell for ripping the wheels off Nitron cars and shoving them in.
I slept in that guy's backyard in a tent.
And you didn't get a Sobek from him? What the heck?
No, but I did get to play with the Sobek, and I did get to see the prototyping. But yeah, no, that was when I went to Europe last year. I slept in a tent in his backyard. Best night's sleep I've had in 5 years.
See, I don't own the only reason I don't own a Spring Thunder is because I was waiting on the Sobek, and here we are.
Yeah, because I'm looking online. The last time I've seen anything was 3 years ago, apparently, with the Sobek 2.0.
I have seen some. He sent me some development stuff recently on improvements and upgrades. Yeah,
it just feels like it and maybe he can reach out and correct me, but it feels like he set his sights so high on what this thing should be that he'll never get where he wants to go.
That is often.
But I'm telling you, whatever it is, man, we want it. It's so cool. It looks
open
great.
source it. We'll figure out the problems, man.
Yeah, exactly.
The only reason I have a Spring Thunder is because Boomstick just mailed me one day.
Oh, there you go.
And then it turned out it's really fun.
We know you love free stuff.
We talked earlier about the best thing about shell ejection is the option for different ammo types in a single blaster.
Yes.
And yeah, I agree. I'd like to see one that fired up to Mega XL.
Totally.
God, that would be a beast of a thing, though.
Violent Joel, what are your picks?
I got a pretty good one. I am but a simple man. I just want a Lynx that fires Ultra.
An Ultra Lynx.
Okay.
You know, the third-party Ultra magazines are back on Amazon. They were gone for a while, and I think there's actually, I think there's one that's styled. They do one for the Ultra.
It looks like the Speed mags, but it's not.
Yeah,
it's
I discovered that if you just take like a Nerf barrel from an N strike blaster and shove it into the barrel of a Mega Caliburn, it'll fire Ultra beautifully.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe I know what I need to do with my Mega Burn then.
Yeah, some faux barrel fires it better than others. It doesn't seal perfectly. I've made my own Ultra barrels before. That's why I want an Ultra Lynx, is because I have experienced sealed breach Ultra. It can work. It's not as bad as it sounds. It's actually pretty okay.
Pretty okay. That's glowing praise
pretty okay
for Ultra.
For Ultra will do, yeah.
Hey,
Vile, you're up. What's yours, Vile?
I have an Ultra Scar barrel here that, shout out to Detroit Dartworks for upsizing a turbine mini Scar.
I recently had somebody call me out on one of my my IR videos with all my IR attachments. They're like, well, it still can't fire Ultra. And like, actually, the very first barrel I ever made for IR's Underslung Titan fires Ultra.
Oh my god!
Because it was originally chambered for Whistler darts, which are the same diameter.
Okay, Vile, you're
that
up.
same
What's
attachment
yours?
will also fire Mega XL. He called me out on that too, and you're like, my dude, you were so far behind. All right, yes. Whoever's next, Vile.
Okay,
talk.
so
I'm done.
All right, so mine's not necessarily blaster, but it's sort of in the same realm as what Captain Xavier said, and it's a flywheeler. But the problem with it is Mega. We don't actually have proper flywheel cages and flywheels, like actual flywheels that are being developed.
There was a singular guy on Facebook.
Right, there's one person randomly, but we don't have them at the sort of mass-produced level.
I can't find them anymore, but he was making a cage and wheels. It was supposed to take, I believe it was Rival and Mega was the goal.
Well, I mean, you can, a lot of times a big upgrade was using Rival cages and wheels, and you can fire Mega, and it has great crush. You could run them on 3S.
It was actually kind of funny for the longest time at Friend Wars, because, you know, everyone had stock blasters. To nerf myself to make it more balanced, I would intentionally use my Nemesis like a Mega Sniper. I'd sit up on a hill using it like an artillery, single loading a Mega Dart and then firing it off into the air.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of Mega adapter things that people have done for Rival flywheelers, but I think that we need some, and you know, this could just go into basically the Moto Strike, right? Like, it needs something so we can get a little bit better, and I have a build that I'm working on that sort of turns it into a fun thing, and I'm looking at potentially making my own cage for it. There's some up on Thingiverse, but they're using stock wheels, or
nobody's making Delrin.
Yeah, nobody's doing
wheels for Mega and Rival. Like,
you want to talk about flywheel collaborations? Hit up Containment Crew. That's gonna be my best bet.
All right,
I know Out of Darts for a while was looking into getting custom made, third party aftermarket, whatever you want to call them, Delrin Rival flywheels, and they just couldn't get them to work.
Yeah, we're still kind of in, like, if your flywheels break on your Rival blaster, you're kind of just out of luck.
Yeah, you're just going to have to sacrifice another Rival blaster.
Yeah.
I remember hearing that the ribs on the Rival wheels would tear apart the Mega Darts over time.
Yeah, that is a problem with them. That's what I'm saying, is we need something that whoever, there's one or two people out there who are working on this, maybe, and they're like part-time, and I
remember someone had
hole in the wall, but
someone in Germany. I'm forgetting their name. They also made wheels for the Double Punch recently, and my brain is just so dead. I keep forgetting their name.
Worstwerfer.
Yeah, them. Yeah.
They were dealing with personal stuff, so they had been taking a break, but they're slowly spooling back up into doing stuff. They made custom wheels all the time for stuff, so that would be my other second person. If you were to hit up somebody about flywheels, it would be worse.
I could have sworn they did some Mega wheels at some point, didn't they? For like the Moto Strike, I thought they did.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, mine and I'm gonna step back from the lipos and step back from the flywheels. I want a probably mega, but it could be mega XL. Max Outlaw. I want a gigantic hip sidearm that shoots probably mega, if we're being vaguely possible here, in a rotating removable, because we have hammer shots that shoot mega and they're great, but I want swappable cylinders. I want
you want an enlarged conductor's revolver is what you want.
So you want the real big iron on your hip.
I am definitely thinking about Domachevsky's
the big iron that's
revolver,
bigger than your hip.
but I'm thinking about it actually just shooting a dart that's the size of those plunger tubes on that thing.
Yeah. So you'd need to pull plunger tubes from like Hot Shocks or something.
Yep. We're talking about a hip iron, except it would probably actually be in a holster on my back.
I'll do you one better. Toilet paper skid shot. Self-contained plunger and catch.
Yeah,
Big
actually,
plunger
you know what? It's true. I have one, and that could potentially be a good one. That's got a massive plunger tube, and it's contained.
Right.
Yeah,
slap a barrel on it. Get yourself a priming handle.
Might have to do that.
Maybe.
I think I will stick with my Mega Ultra 2. Doesn't have the swapping cylinders though.
That is, yeah. I mean that, but you do have the rear loading. You do have the rear loading, which
you
is
got the
really,
rear
really
loading,
nice
and it does
Ultra
work
2.
fairly well. It's not nearly as good as the Elite Ultra 2, obviously, but
yeah. One of my first big exciting moments at a Nerf war was actually with a Elite modded Ultra 2, where I saved a game having that. I had carried that thing around the entire game, had not touched it the entire time. Ran out of ammo. I was like down to 1v1 in a game, ran out of ammo in my primary, tossed it on the ground, and then suddenly, like, I had been like shooting single shots at them this whole time, and suddenly they were like getting peppered with Elite darts. That thing had just sat on my hip the entire I love modded Ultra 2s. It's just so good. Anyway, with that, we are over 2 hours on this podcast. But I may mind tomorrow. I may mind tomorrow when I'm editing it, but right now I am so happy because this was incredibly fun having you on here with the whole crew. Really, really great time. Thank you so much for coming on today, Chaylo, and making the time to do that with us. Again, I am confident that everybody listening to this podcast knows who you are, but
you never know,
because this is what you do at the end of a podcast, and because anyone that doesn't already know about your work should know about your work. Where can they find you?
They can find me on YouTube as Captain Xavier. If they're looking for my Lego channel, it's Captain Xavier's Lego channel. You can also find me on TikTok as I think Captain Xavier Nerf, and on Instagram as Captain Xavier Nerf.
I think at this point, it's like your channel's gotten big enough that you can just type Captain and then it autofills to either Captain Underpants or Captain Xavier. Like you're like the second one.
That's
even if it's like
neat.
a fresh install of Windows.
I really need to
well
do more TikToks and maybe upload
I would not have
stuff
pegged you as a TikTok man.
I wasn't going to, and then I discovered how great a format it is for just doing real short range videos of just taking a blaster.
Do random.
Yeah, the mag
Yeah,
dump.
do it.
You can kind of just do random stuff. People love it on TikTok all the time. We will, of course, have links down in the description for on YouTube and actually on the podcast services too. The links work, I've discovered. So,
will that links fire Mega or Ultra? That is the question.
Well, the link.
Of all things, I still don't own a Lynx.
Seriously?
Never a big fan of bullpups. I'm prejudiced because I'm left-handed, and when I went to fire a real bullpup, I realized it was going to eject the brass into my ear.
Yeah, I feel you with the left-handed thing. I love bullpups, but I'm left-handed, so it means it would be so impractical for me to own an actual one.
It's also the reason for the longest.
I've played so much Halo that it's kind of drilled it into my head. Bullpups are cool. So when I had the opportunity, I got one from SFI.
Yeah.
Love their stuff.
I do have the Man's End Miscreant, which is a very nice bullpup. And for also being left-handed, for the longest time, I didn't like bolt-action blasters, and then someone sent me a left-handed Cynthia, and you're like, oh, this is why people like bolt-action. That is a very satisfying, priming feeling.
Hey, I love
I bet-
bullpups, but I also love finishing editing the show and going to sleep. So,
Wow.
does anyone else on
Wow.
does anyone else on the team have anything to plug right now? Vile, are you still doing
Eating hot
Boobtober?
glue.
Yes, I am still doing Boobtober, or raising money for the BCRF for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I still have a campaign going. If you want to come over to my channel, we still have milestones to unlock and a lot of giveaway items actually from a lot of cool people like Radioactive's Designs. Steam Puke is out on there. I've got something from Grim Reaper as well. So a lot of stuff available. KT's even donated a modded blaster. So again,
It's true.
still doing it. Giveaways and everything will be done online on the 28th of October.
If you are listening to this on release day on streaming platforms, Vile is probably live right now. It's probably halfway through the stream because this podcast is so long. And if you're listening to it on YouTube, this weekend of streams is over, but he'll be on next weekend.
It's true.
Vile, twitch.tv/Vile_mods, and you can usually catch a lot of the crew hanging out there as well and causing chaos.
Lots.
And I stream music on Twitch. I haven't been doing it a ton lately, but I'm leaning back into it a little bit. I have one stream this month, and guess what? If you're listening to the podcast, you missed it. But I'll be back on more, twitch.tv/Kinetic Turtle. You can find me for my music on YouTube as Kinetic Turtle. Of course, I'm Family Film Sport. All of us have YouTube channels. Please check them out. They're linked everywhere. We have merch now. If you want a shirt.
Yes.
If you want... do we have stickers? We didn't do stickers. We should do stickers.
We do have stickers.
Do we have
yes. There
stickers?
are
Okay, we have
on there, yeah.
stickers and like mugs and stuff. And please check that out. And of course, if you enjoyed hearing the captain answer your questions, you can support us on Ko-fi, which is super, super helpful. And our next goal is going to be getting Jolt a new microphone. And then after that, actually me a new microphone, because I'm faking having good sound. I don't actually have good sound. And that's it. I think we're done. I have to finish editing the show. I'm going to be up until like 2 a.m. So thank you again,
Lord.
Chaylo, for rocking with us today. And,
Absolutely. This was fun.
Does anybody have anything else to say before we finish off?
Eating hot glue.
Yes, that's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you so much. We did it. Great job, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
And you can stop.